the Wandmaker of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26. Who has the best demolition skills? The professors asked the young wizard to wait where he was and then walk towards the Black Lake with Lupin Point. When they arrived at the lake, the teachers called over a few small boats. After they got on them, the boats automatically sailed towards the other side of the lake without any wind point. When they were far away, the young wizards began to whisper among themselves, not understanding what would happen next. Harry, Ron and others surrounded Liu Senator. He was the initiator and investor of everything, so he must know what the professors were doing. Under the questioning and gaze of his classmates, Liu Sen had no choice but to act as the commentator. He looked down and saw that there were no intact branches. He thought about it and tried to use his fingers as a magic wand. He pointed his fingers at his neck and said, "Loud sound. Cough cough cough." There was no response. He recalled the application techniques of Chinese magic and tried twice more. Finally, he succeeded. After feeling it, it was much more difficult than using a magic wand, and the effect was not as good, but it could be used barely. Liu Sen said to the students in a much louder voice, "Students, welcome to the reconstruction project of the Hogwarts Rangers hut." After everyone stopped talking and looked over curiously, Liu Sen continued, "Ranger Rubius Hagrid has been guarding the Forbidden Forest diligently for many years, blocking the dangerous creatures in the Forbidden Forest behind him. He is a loyal and kind person and has given a lot of help to teachers and classmates. This construction will be fully funded by Yin Group and will be responsible for the design and construction. Galaxy Group is a newly born enterprise with business covering construction, finance, clothing, manufacturing and other fields. The corporate philosophy is people-oriented, leading wizards into a new era." Liu Sen looked around and found that the young wizards were indeed not interested in formal speeches, so he took off his formal expression and said with a smile, "Okay, let me tell you something that you're interested in. I own the Galaxy Group. If you have any business needs in the future, you can come to me. I'll give you a discount." The little wizard was no longer sleepy at that time. He looked gossipy and envious of the rich. Seeing that the little wizard was in high spirits, Liu Sen continued, "Everyone may be wondering how Hagrid's hut got damaged. That's right, I accidentally blew it up." The students were instantly excited. Some were shocked, some were laughing, and some, like Malfoy and his gang, were gloating. "I'm sorry, Hagrid, but today, a more beautiful house is about to be built. We will use the best materials, the most advanced technology, the most professional construction team, and of course the best teachers and students. Let's build a beautiful house together to protect Hogwarts. Do you want to build a house together?" A few young wizards shouted, "Yes." Liu Sen put a hand to his ear and asked, "Do you want to write your name in a history of Hogwarts?" Most of the young wizards shouted, "Yes, yes." Liu Sen raised his arms and shouted, "Do you want to blow up Hagrid's old house with me?" All the little wizards shouted, "Think, think, think." Liu Sen jumped onto a tree stump and gave the command, "What are you waiting for? Stay in line. Safety is our top priority. Listen to my command. First row, fire at full force. Okay. Lower your heads and retreat. Second row, move forward. Get ready." In an instant, colorful magical light beams hit Hagrid's old house from a distance of 30 meters. The seniors used the spells of Shattered into Pieces, Shock and Explosion very well, and the magic cast on the old house immediately caused bricks and stones to fly everywhere. However, the juniors were mostly funny burning hot, quickly frozen, even cleaned up, and flocks of birds were all used. Not only were the magic spells varied, but their accuracy and success rates were also laughably low. Liu Sen couldn't help but feel worried for these little wizards in the greenhouse. "That's it? That's it. The little wizards were having fun, and Hagrid's old house, which had been emptied, turned into bricks and rubble in an instant. The supervisor spontaneously organized discipline, and at LIUSEN's suggestion, released a spring of clear water into the burning ruins before the excitement had worn off. The sharp-eyed little wizard suddenly noticed some movement on the Black Lake. What do you think that is? Everyone looked over and saw a huge dragon-like creature slowly floating on the lake. When they got closer to the river bank, the little wizards could see clearly that these were actually large ships transformed from train carriages. LIUSEN proposed to use a Hogwarts Express to transport building materials. After approval by the Ministry of Magic, the red steam locomotive that picked up students was used again, but with 10 freight cars attached to the back. Fully loaded. The original plan was for Lupin to lead the team, with a newly hired wizard from the Galactic Group on each carriage. After arriving at Hogsmeade Station, they would use magic to lighten the weight of the carriages, and then let the train run on the road, bypassing the cabin by land transport point with the help of the teachers. The train was transformed into a boat. Across the Black Lake, a straight line between 2 points. Great. It's magical. In the face of magic, don't worry about the principle of buoyancy or Archimedes' formula. Just do it. The heavy train carriage, after turning into a ship, flowed steadily on the water. You can't tell how deep its draft is. It looks like a light wooden boat. When they reached the shore, Professor McGonagall, who was in the lead, waved her wand, and the boat quickly transformed back into a locomotive. It then unscientifically drove out of the muddy river beach and ran steadily on the dirt road with its iron wheels. With the joint efforts of the teachers and Galaxy Group staff, the carriages at the back were also quickly transformed and cast with magic to reduce weight. A train word to the construction site, emitting black smoke. It had been a long time since the teachers had performed magic at such a high intensity. Especially the elderly Professors McGonagall and Flitwick, who all showed signs of fatigue. LIUSEN quickly borrowed Harry's wand, used a transfiguration spell to conjure up a chair, and lifted it up. The senior students followed suit and produced tables and chairs for the teachers to rest. The chair LIUSEN conjured up was soft and its shape was far from what he expected. It was the worst among all. But Professor McGonagall smiled and pointed out the shortcomings in the spell. After all, LIUSEN was only a first-year student, and it was not easy to cast a spell with someone else's wand and achieve such an effect. Seeing that the teachers were so tired, LIUSEN couldn't help but think in his heart that wizards were still too dependent on their own magic power and did everything by themselves using magic wands to cast spells. Such large-scale spellcasting consumes a huge amount of magic power. If it is an ordinary person, it is not as convenient as a magician to rely on large machines, but it can be popularized. Healthy adults can operate it proficiently in a few months. Billions of people are available worldwide, but what about magicians? Only those with superb skills and strong magical power can do what they just did. How many top wizards are there like them? LIUSEN brought out tea and snacks from inside the door, so that everyone who had just worked hard to cast a spell could take a break, but his mind was full of wild thoughts. Suddenly Hagrid was the first to notice his old house. With his exclamation, the teachers realized that it had become a ruin. The little wizards all took a step back at the same time, making LIUSEN stand out. LIUSEN, embarrassing face. Do you guys care about that? I didn't even get to play it just now. Chapter 27. Building a house doesn't require just a magic wand. After being disloyally pointed out by his classmates, LIUSEN was collectively criticized by the teachers. However, after the senior stories and pleas, the teachers were not really angry. Instead, they were very pleased that the little wizards had received practical training. After a while, Lupin called the employees of the Galaxy Group together, and after counting the materials and confirming the operating procedures, they began formal construction. The Galaxy Group has sent 10 employees to await Lupin's dispatch. Each wizard has gone through layers of screening. Not only must they have outstanding magical skills, but they must also have flexible thinking and strong team awareness. More than half of them were wizards who had just graduated, and some were supervisors or Quidditch players. Now that they were back at their alma mater to build it, everyone was extremely focused. Lupin was the first to wave his wand, controlling the steel bars to float up and insert them into the excavated foundation one by one according to the drawings. The employees of the Galaxy Group also raised their wands and worked in pairs, some tying up the steel bars to shape them, some filling the gaps with stones, and some measuring, monitoring and assisting in corrections. There are also 4 wizards who are responsible for mixing concrete. Yes, LIUSEN's design is to use Muggle materials for the foundation construction. A large amount of lake water was summoned, and sand, cement, and pebbles were mobilized from the train. The 4 were mixed evenly in mid-air. Under the effect of magic, the concrete prepared was more detailed and perfect than that mixed by cement mixers. The teachers did not intervene at this time. This was Lupin's intention. He wanted to take this opportunity to run in the team and verify the operation process. The entire construction process was orderly, and the allocation and construction of all materials were quickly deployed under Lupin's command point. It only took 1 hour. All the processes were completed. During this time, LIUSEN acted as a photographer and took several sets of photos from different angles for later use. Under the influence of magic, without using any equipment, only 11 wizards built a beautiful house. This efficiency and convenience is unimaginable for muggles in ordinary society. Moreover, under the effect of magic, the steel bars are directly fused together without welding. The cement does not need to be cured. It solidifies directly into the best state. The new house does not need to be aired. You can move in directly with your luggage. After the main structure was completed, the teachers and students of the school gave sincere applause and cheers to this pleasing construction process. If this is the original way of building houses in the magical world, then whatever you think of will come true. When building with bricks and stones, don't consider the load-bearing limit and stress concentration. Just use a reinforcement spell to solve the problem. While covering the house, you realize that you forgot to leave any doors and windows. It doesn't matter, I'll use the transfiguration spell to get rid of you. While I was renovating, I suddenly wanted to add another room next to the second floor. Sure, I can just build it outside and stick a permanent spell on it. So except for castles like Hogwarts that were designed by masters, most buildings in the wizarding world are crooked and their interiors are very complicated. Magicians build it however they want and use magic to correct any mistakes. The buildings in Gringotts and Diagon Alley are both crooked and dodgy, which gives you an idea of the wizard's architectural skills. It's rare to see a house built as smoothly as Galaxy Group and plan all the details so carefully. After the main part was completed, the teachers helped to move the new tables, chairs, and furniture from the train into the house, and put Hagrid's remaining daily necessities in their point. In this way, a spacious and beautiful new house can be moved into. Teachers and students entered Hagrid's new house for a tour. As soon as they entered the house, they saw a huge living room. The high door frame meant that Hagrid no longer had to lower his head to enter the house. At the end on the right was a semicircular living area with large and bright windows. The stove was in the corner. When warming up by the fire, one could see the forbidden forest and the lights of the castle by just looking up. To the left of the stove is a bright and spacious kitchen area where Hagrid can show off his cooking skills to his heart's content, including but not limited to rock pancakes. On the left side of the living room there is a double door, which leads to a very spacious activity room, where little wizards can even hold a small dance party. There are several rooms on the second floor that can be used as guest rooms or small activity rooms. The main tower on the third floor is the lookout room and bedroom, where the view is better and you can see the surroundings at a glance. Of course, the one who was more excited than the excited little wizards was Hagrid. The sturdy half-giant was so moved that he burst into tears. He took out a handkerchief as big as a tablecloth and kept wiping his tears while expressing gratitude to everyone. Liusen had the foresight to throw away all of Hagrid's dirty clothes and rags and replace them with new ones. Otherwise, the scene of him wiping his tears with the spliced together dirty rags would have really ruined the atmosphere. Seeing the good atmosphere, Liusen suddenly had an idea and whispered in Professor McGonagall's ear. Professor McGonagall thought about it for a moment and discussed it quietly with Hagrid and the teachers and actually agreed. She clapped her hands to quiet everyone down. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a day to celebrate. The ranger's house has been rebuilt, and everyone here has contributed to it. Little wizards, you have learned a valuable lesson through your actions. That is, working together can accomplish any impossible task, so I agreed to Mr. Liusen's proposal. That is, to hold a small celebration banquet here, in Hagrid's new house later. The little wizards cheered immediately. Flitwick led the senior students to cast a spell, to fill the house with flowers and ribbons. Professor Sprout took a few children to the garden outside, to plant flowers and vegetables. The other teachers directed the students, to place tables and chairs, to decorate the scene. Professor McGonagall personally took Liusen, Lupin and others back to the castle. She first reported the news of the completion and the celebration banquet to Dumbledore. Then she notified the house elves in the kitchen that half of the food for dinner would be sent to Hagrid's new house. By the evening, more and more little wizards learned what had happened in the afternoon, and they all called their friends to join in the fun. As a result, more and more people came, and the house could not accommodate them. They had to move the tables and chairs from the auditorium and hold the celebration banquet outside. Almost all the teachers and students in the school came. Hagrid's new house was suddenly bustling with activity. Since they were outdoors, the Weasley brothers had room to display their talents, and they happily released fireworks into the sky. Finally, the teachers also joined in, decorating the night sky with more gorgeous magic fireworks, making it look like a dream. After eating and drinking, the teachers moved the tables and chairs away, lit a beautiful bonfire in the middle of the courtyard, and used magic to play beautiful music. The celebration dance began. Senior students showed off their dancing skills, and even Professor McGonagall danced at Flitwick's invitation. What impressed people was that Flitwick used magic to float in the air, and his dancing skills were actually quite good. The party lasted until about 9 o'clock in the evening, when everyone ended the celebration reluctantly. Hagrid had a belly full of wine, and when everyone left, he staggered to his feet to see them off, crying and laughing like a 3-meter tall child. When Lupin was about to leave, he said goodbye to Liusen and asked for a week's leave with a complicated expression. Liusen agreed without hesitation. Of course he knew what was going on. It would be a full moon tomorrow night. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Searching for Wolfsbane Potion. In the next few days, Liusen searched for information about the wolf poison potion, but regretfully discovered that this drug, that could allow a werewolf to retain his sanity while transforming, had not yet been invented. The small group of werewolves has always suffered from discrimination and has a low social status, so there are not many wizards researching related drugs. If time continues to develop normally, it will take another 2 years for the Wolfsbane potion to be invented. Every time Lupin transforms, he suffers a lot, and is also very dangerous to the people around him. Can we speed up drug development? Liusen pondered over it, and finally recalled a clue. Professor Slughorn really likes to attract students with potential. One of his students' uncle is the inventor of the Wolfsbane potion, and has also won the Order of Merlin. Based on this clue, Liusen checked the wizards who were researching werewolf potions, and he actually screened out the suspected inventor, Damocles Belby. Damocles Belby once published a potion-themed paper on how to keep werewolves sane in Transfiguration today, and his nephew Marcus Belby is currently attending Ravenclaw. That's him. Damocles Belby. Liusen secretly contacted the other party and asked about the progress of the drug research and development, only to find out that the project had been shelved. The theoretical research of this potion has been basically completed, but the required potion raw materials are of various types, and it is not only expensive, but also extremely time consuming. Damocles Belby had to run around 4 gold galleons and even worked as a laborer to make medicine for others in order to earn funds. Potions master is a very lucrative profession, but Damocles became poor because of his research. Damocles' family couldn't understand this, and his own brother even cut off all contact with him. Money is not everything, but without money, nothing is possible. This sentence is applicable everywhere. Coincidentally, Galaxy Group is not short of money. LIUSEN immediately wrote a letter to his uncle, the financial backer behind the scenes, and his mother, a shareholder, recommending this potential alchemist and explaining the effects of the Wolfsbane potion point from an investment perspective. The market return rate of Wolfsbane potion is destined to be low. But from the perspective of impact, this investment is still very meaningful. So, when Lupin returned from his sick leave a week later, he was assigned a new task, to assist Damocles Belby in developing the Wolfsbane potion. Lupin, who had just received the task, was completely disheartened, thinking that his identity had been exposed, and that his boss was trying to get rid of him in disguise. It turns out that LIUSEN knew about his werewolf origin when he first started recruiting, and didn't care at all. Lupin, who had been wandering for half his life, was immediately filled with gratitude, and said that his life would belong to the Galactic Group from now on. Of course LIUSEN didn't want his life, he just wanted him to work hard and display his talents. As a result, the Galaxy Group established a medical division, and Damocles Belby became the chief potion developer. LIUSEN originally thought that with sufficient funds and the ready-made little white wolf, the potion would be available soon. But after communication, he realized that the research and development of potions is not that simple, especially this kind of time-consuming and material-consuming potion. Damocles' formula needs final adjustment and verification, and the slight increase or decrease of auxiliary materials will directly affect the efficacy. It currently takes 8 months to make 1 dose of medicine. Even if you multitask, it takes 3 months to make 3 doses of medicine at a time to verify 2 ratios. If you want to succeed in years, you can only rely on luck. LIUSEN felt somewhat regretful after hearing this explanation. It was not because of the money he was burning, but because he was worried that with his involvement, the development of the Wolfsbane potion would easily experience a butterfly effect. In order to prevent any trouble, LIUSEN decided to use an ultimate trick besides the trick. So on Friday afternoon, LIUSEN gritted his teeth and knocked on Snape's door. "Dear Professor Snape, are you interested in receiving the Order of Merlin?" LIUSEN asked. "No, go away." Snape was making medicine without looking up. "Ah, you interested in developing an extremely difficult potion? The kind that takes 8 months to make a dose?" LIUSEN continued to lobby. "Tell me about it." Snape suddenly became interested when talking about his beloved potions. Wolfsbane potion. A potion that can keep werewolves sane. Marcus Belby is making the final adjustments, but he cannot confirm the ratio of the last few ingredients. He needs a highly skilled potion master to conduct experiments with him. The Galaxy Group is willing to hire you as a special potion master with generous remuneration. Go away. I'm not interested. Snape showed a look of disgust and said in a bad attitude, "Professor, this medicine is very challenging and is a blessing for wizards who are deeply affected by Wolfsbane. You will share the Order of Merlin with Damocles." Snape interrupted angrily. "Don't think I don't know your little thoughts. Don't you just want your number 1 lackey to suffer less when he transforms? That conceited, disgusting and despicable werewolf. You don't know how bad Lupin is inside. I will never make medicine for him in my life. Unless it's poison." LIUSEN knew about what happened between Snape and Lupin during their school days. Seeing that Snape was angry and didn't refute him, he thought to himself, "If I don't make medicine for Lupin in this lifetime, according to the original plan, you will have to make a lot of Wolfsbane potion in the next 2 years." After thinking about it, LIUSEN gave up today's persuasion and came up with a plan. "Professor, I won't give up. After a while, I will let you see my sincerity." On the other hand, Hagrid, who had lived in the new house for half a month, finally stopped complaining that he couldn't sleep after changing his place. Of course, LIUSEN knew that the other person was the kind of person who would start snoring as soon as he lay down anywhere. He was just not used to the brand new house and new furniture. LIUSEN also helped him redesen his clothes and outfit and gave him another prophecy. He would meet his destined other half in 3 years, so he must seize the opportunity. Although Hagrid didn't quite believe LIUSEN's prediction, He still accepted his kindness and tried his best to tidy himself up before going out. So people were surprised to find that the always sloppy giant had become much more energetic since he moved into a new house. His beard was no longer messy, but combed and tied together. His clothes were no longer the same old dirty robe, but a brand new and comfortable British windbreaker and jeans. Of course, Hagrid was unwilling to accept Liusen's gift. He felt that Liusen had done enough and well. But Liusen told him that this was an advertisement for himself, and such a large billboard was not easy to find. There was indeed a trademark in a conspicuous position on Hagrid's clothes, and a rune similar to a capital G was printed on the exquisite shield badge, which itself represented thunder and lightning, and could also be seen as the first letter of the word galaxy. The background outside the letters is enchanted, so wizards will see a rotating universe of stars. Muggles will only see still stars. This is of course Remus Lupin's idea. When building Hagrid's new house, Liusen took a lot of photos. The next day, he selected a few and submitted them to the Daily Prophet. He didn't even have to use the gold galleons to make it to the front page. He even received a small amount of royalties. After all, it is very rare to build a house in Hogwarts. Not to mention the construction method that has never been seen before. With the help of newspapers and word of mouth from Hogwarts teachers and students, the Galaxy Group received dozens of orders for house repairs and new construction in just half a month. After Lupin came back, he urgently recruited another group of people. In the old British wizarding world, the Galaxy Group had novel ideas, perfect craftsmanship, high quality products and low prices, and it quickly captured a large market share in a short period of time. However, there are also old-fashioned conservative wizards who think that the Galactic Group's construction method must not be strong. They have no idea that Muggles had built skyscrapers with reinforced concrete decades ago. At the same time, Galaxy Group's clothing business also began operations, and Hagrid's clothes were the first batch of products. However, Lupin was not good at organizing clothing processing, and he wrote several letters to suggest that Liusen choose a suitable person to take over. Although Liusen agreed verbally, he was busy writing letters to the Ministry of Magic. He anonymously suggested to fudge to improve the Hogwarts train. Chapter 29 Mrs. Weasley-039's new job. You know, the original intention of sending students to school by train was to make it easier for wizards to hide themselves and reduce the risk of being discovered. But what era is it now? It's 1991. The Hogwarts Express is still powered by a steam locomotive. Does that make sense? Can it be hidden from Muggles? So Liusen wrote a letter of advice to Fudge in a sophisticated tone, telling him, "Sir, times have changed. If you want to avoid being exposed, you must keep up with the trend of the times. The train's appearance is actually very easy to solve. Just a matter of transfiguration. It can be solved in minutes. But this is the school bus of the most important magic school in the UK, and it also involves the statute of secrecy, so Fudge must approve it." At first, the letter fell on deaf ears, so Liusen used Diagon Alley as a transit point, and asked someone to write more than a dozen letters in different fonts, and send them anonymously. But what he didn't expect was that Fudge somehow determined that the letters were written by the same person. Fortunately, Liusen transferred it, otherwise it would have been exposed. The other party's reply was also very simple, with just one meaning: as long as I'm the Minister of Magic, no one can expect any changes. Liusen is very angry, so why not change? Just keep it stable? But, so the recipient of the letter became the Daily Prophet, and it fell into oblivion again. Liusen didn't believe it anymore, so he submitted his work to the Quibbler again. The good news was that it was published, but the bad news was that no one read it. Putting this matter aside, Liusen also knew that reforming the magic world could not be rushed. He had no choice but to find something else to do, such as finding someone to manage Galaxy Group's clothing production. Liusen has become more and more disgusted with writing letters recently. They deliver messages too slowly. He had just received a reply to the letter he had sent to Mrs. Platinum 3 days earlier, but the result was not satisfactory. Mrs. Platinum simply disdained to cooperate with the newly established company to produce new styles of clothes. The letter was full of sarcasm and disdain for the new clothing. The cloth package LIUSEN had sent was returned intact, and the denim, windproof silk, and breathable composite materials inside were devalued to be worthless. Ron, who was playing chess, saw that LIUSEN was in a bad mood and asked curiously, "What are you fiddling with? You've been sending letters lately, and this time you're studying fabrics again." LIUSEN didn't care at first. They didn't understand many things, even if they were told. But he suddenly noticed Ron's sweater. "Ron, is your mother good at making clothes?" LIUSEN asked. Ron's face immediately turned red. He smoothed the corner of his clothes and confidently and said embarrassedly, "She can only refurbish and reduce the size of my brother's old sweaters and modify second-hand robes. You know, I have too many children, and the clothes worn by my brothers can actually be used." LIUSEN thought about it and felt that the sweaters knitted by Mrs. Weasley were pretty good, but there were too many children, and most of the time she would just give Ron the old clothes, so Ron hadn't had new clothes for a long time. "Can I invite her to our company?" "Going to your company? What for?" Ron asked, puzzled. "There is no one in charge of clothing production. If she is interested, can we let her try it? The salary is good." LIUSEN negotiated. Ron's eyes lit up, and he immediately put down the wizard chess. The great territory conquered by his pawns was quickly occupied by Harry, who took advantage of the opportunity. "I'll write home right away." "Harry, can I use your Hedwig?" Harry, who was killing everyone, said happily. "Of course. Just use it as you like. You and LIUSEN don't need to ask me. Hedwig is free anyway." A few days later, LIUSEN and Ron both received letters. LIUSEN's letter was written by Lupin. "Mrs. Weasley is very serious and responsible. She also loves clothing making. Her character is impeccable, so the head of the clothing department has been found." Ron's letter was from her mother, telling all the Weasleys in school that she had passed the assessment and successfully joined the Galactic Collective. The salary and benefits were very good. The family would no longer have to be so tight on money in the future. "By the way, there is a package with new clothes for Ron, the twin brothers and Percy. Employee benefits, new fabric samples." Ron put down the letter and hugged the twin brothers with joy. They finally had new clothes. LIUSEN, "Thank you so much. You gave my mom a good job, and you gave us new clothes," Ron said awkwardly, lowering his head more and more, and finally he didn't dare to look LIUSEN in the eye. His strong self-esteem made him not know how to deal with this kindness. LIUSEN knew the boy's temper and joked, "Come on, Ron. Do you think I reserved this position specifically for Mrs. Weasley? I don't want to be your brother-in-law." Ha 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 ha. As they were laughing, the scene suddenly became quiet. Several Weasleys in the common room, Harry, who was playing chess, and Hermione, who was reading in the corner, all looked at him strangely, as if to say, "I didn't expect you to be this kind of person." LIUSEN suddenly broke out in sweat. He forgot that Ron really had a sister. "I'm kidding. What I mean is, there have been a lot of people applying for the job recently, but Mrs. Weasley is the best. Many witches refused to accept our newly purchased Muggle sewing machine, but Mrs. Weasley was not opposed to it and used it very well. Of course, she used magic to control it. The clothes she makes are of the best quality, and she is a responsible person, so the company hired her. So, she fought for the position herself. It was not given by me." The Weasleys looked at each other, relaxed a little, but then sighed quietly. Ron felt relieved. Finally he didn't owe anyone a favor for nothing. He stroked the new smooth clothes and asked in confusion, "What about this clothes? Is it really an employee benefit?" LIUSEN hesitated for a moment and thought about how to put it. He did want to help the Weasley family, but saying it out loud might easily hurt a few people. His hesitation immediately made Ron and the others feel complicated. The twins' eyes lit up. They looked at each other and guessed each other's thoughts. Fred whispered, "When, George?" "I don't know. Maybe when we are seeing you off at the station." LIUSEN didn't hear the two people's muttering. He thought for a moment and said, "In fact, the employee benefit is a set of clothes for each person. However, the Weasley family happens to be one of the 28 pureblood families, which is a rare large family in the wizarding world. So the company decided to take this opportunity to advertise. Yes, it's an advertisement. When Ron and his friends heard Liu Sen praising his family as a large family, they felt quite proud and showed a look of pride on their faces, but they still didn't quite believe what the advertisement said. Liu Sen pretended to be mysterious and whispered, "The first batch of trial products may have flaws and design defects. We need to try them on internally and not let others know. This is an internal custom-made model." Several people nodded, thinking that this statement made some sense. Liu Sen himself was also wearing new clothes of his own. He patted the galaxy logo on his chest and continued to strike while the iron was hot, saying, "Have you seen the Galaxy Group logo? The logo of the internal customized model cannot be taken off. Always promote the brand and advertise. If you take it off, you will be fined." Only then did they put their doubts aside and happily accepted the new clothes. But I still wondered in my heart, when did Liu Sen fall in love with his own sister? Chapter 30. What kind of wood is this? By mid-October, the Galaxy Group's construction business was booming, and the clothing business was gradually getting back on track after Mrs. Weasley joined. Remus Lupin's letters were always hurried, but he was very content with such a fulfilling and busy life. During this period, Liu Sen was thinking about a question while studying and writing letters. Why is the development of the magic world so slow? Liu Sen thought of the African continent on Blue Star in his previous life. There is no need to say much about the physical fitness of black people. Just look at the Olympics, basketball, and football. Perhaps a long time ago, there were not only black people, but also people of all skin colors on the African savannah. But except for black people, no one could survive in a place full of dangers in the eyes of the brave black people. Africa is a paradise. They chase lions, roast crocodiles, burn fat cattle, and catch gazelles all day long. Their life is full of joy. While others are developing weapons and technology, they can live comfortably on their own. So why bother to make progress? What they lacked in tools they made up for in physical fitness. All they needed was a small broken arrow with a range of 10 meters and a spear made of stone or wood to have fun on the prairie. Later, when Westerners brought guns to Africa, it was another tragic story. Let's look at the Indians in the Americas. Their physical fitness and tools are average, but their location is great. The chosen place to start. The crops were all corn, sweet potatoes, and pumpkins that could be easily planted and yielded high yields. And there was also an endless supply of bison and fat fish. Later, when Westerners came to America with guns, it became a familiar tragic story. Innate advantages and geographical advantages may not be the only reasons for their backwardness, but there are similarities between them. On the wizard side. Through the Industrial Revolution, ordinary society has made several major strides in 100 years. From horse-drawn carriages to steam cars, and then to cars, driven by internal combustion engines, airplanes flying in the sky, submarines swimming in the sea, and spacecraft in outer space. There are many things that ordinary people cannot do, so find ways to achieve them. Explore. But for wizards, most of the muggle changes are useless. They don't need to care what drives the car. As long as they want, they can wave their wand to go. If they want to fly, they can fly on a broom. If they want to dive, a bubblehead charm can solve it, or transfiguration can also do it. The convenience of magic can do everything, and the habit of not needing to explore the principles behind it have made wizards numb and arrogant. They have already fallen behind without realizing it. Liu Sen knew that the cultivation world in China was different from other places and had long been integrated with ordinary people. When the world adhered to the law of confidentiality, China undoubtedly became an outlier. The wizarding world of many countries does not dare to have in-depth exchanges with China. They do not have such foresight nor such courage. Liu Sen has learned from his correspondence with his uncle that China is now isolated from all other countries. Many new ideas and measures cannot be implemented freely. Chunchen is being dragged down by a bunch of stupid teammates. Putting aside his random thoughts, Liu Sen had something urgent to deal with. His magic wand. The seal that the two professors had put together was still on his wand. preventing him from casting magic outside of transfiguration and charms classes thanks to the magical sealing chain. Liu Sen can always feel the flow of every bit of magic power and the process of rune construction more carefully when waving the thunder wand. However good and detailed the simulation is, it still needs to be verified in practice. It's just like in a game. You have been practicing your skills in the training ground with proficiency x10 for a long time, so of course you will look forward to entering the official game and killing everyone. Although Liu Sen has mastered special spellcasting techniques by combining Chinese magic, he can use twigs, paint brushes and even fingers as magic wands to cast spells. But every profession has its specialties, and small items like twigs will become scrapped after one use. Moreover, compared with magic wands, items that have not been processed and have no core are extremely clumsy to use, and their accuracy and power are far behind those of a standard magic wand. The spellcasting experience gained with the Thunder Wand must be verified with a normal wand, so Liu Sen came to Hagrid's new house and said straight to the point, "Hagrid, I want to ask you for some materials." Hagrid, who was baking rock cakes, was wearing a fireproof apron produced by the Galaxy Group and said happily, "Haha, Liu Sen, I can finally help you. What do you want? Just take it. You know where it is." Liu Sen helped him move, and of course knew that Hagrid was referring to his basement, which was piled with the junk he collected from the Forbidden Forest. Liu Sen was not polite. After thanking Hagrid, he went down the stairs to the spacious underground floor. The design of the basement was Liu Sen's special request. The area here is as large as the one above. It is surrounded by thick concrete, and Professor Flitwick was asked to help cast reinforcement magic. This way Liu Sen will have a place to conduct elegant and harmonious, dangerous, and exciting magic experiments. Unfortunately, Liu Sen has been a bit busy recently, and his Thunder Wand is temporarily in the learning machine state, so he can't use it freely. On a row of storage racks, Liu Sen saw at a glance a small bundle of things emitting a faint silvery white glow. Unicorn tail hair. This kind of pure creature is not common in the magical world, but fortunately there is a group of unicorns in the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid has been in the Forbidden Forest for many years. The unicorns are familiar with him and occasionally greet Hagrid from a distance point, and every time this happens, Hagrid collects their fallen tail feathers and makes them into feather dusters. Liu Sen has seen Hagrid sweeping dust with it. This pure and sacred material makes the unicorn feather duster a great dust remover. I wonder if the Wand Master Ollivander would cry when he sees it. Liu Sen picked out a dozen with good quality and hung the rest back. I got some unicorn tail hair. This thing is perfect for making wands. Liu Sen said to Hagrid as he returned to the oven. Why only take this little? I have a lot of unicorn tail hair. Sometimes when I come across short ones in the Forbidden Forest, I don't even pick up the long and complete ones. You don't have to be polite to me, just take them all. Hagrid has never been interested in money. He treated a gold mountain as a dirt bag and said nonchalantly, "These are enough for my experiments. I'll get more when I need them. By the way, Hagrid, where can I find some good wood?" Liu Sen asked as he smelled the fragrance from the oven and helped Hagrid add a few pieces of wood into the stove. "What kind of wood do you want?" As he said this, Hagrid put on gloves, opened the oven lid, and took a look. He felt that the fire was not enough, so he added a few more pieces of wood. Liu Sen thought for a moment. Woods that can be used to make wands, such as yew, hawthorn, walnut, cypress, oak. Hagrid threw the last piece of wood and clapped his hands, then paused suddenly at this. What we just burned was cypress and oak. Liu Sen, the beams of my old house were made of purple sandals, but you blew them up. Oh finally. Liu Sen searched through Hagrid's firewood pile and only found a few small branches. Liu Sen gently bent the branch in his hand and found it to be very flexible. He was surprised and said, "Hagrid, what tree is this from? It has a lot of magic power. It can be used as a wand." Hagrid thought for a moment and said hesitantly, "This, I don't recommend you to use it. Although I don't know how to make a wand, but this." Liu Sen was surprised and asked, "What's wrong with this? What kind of tree is this?" It looks like a willow, but it's harder than a willow. This is a humping willow, said Hagrid. Liusen. Chapter 31. You don't understand the joy of making staffs. Liusen finally decided to try to make a magic wand with the branches of the humping willow. He had plenty of materials anyway, and if it was scrapped he could just ask Hagrid for a few more dollars. So Liusen began his tireless work of making sticks. Ron. Liusen. Let's go. Let's go watch Harry practice Quidditch. He's been flying better and better lately. Liu.Sen waved the carving knife up and down without looking back and said, "No, I'm making a wand." Bah. Making a magic wand, Neville. Liusen. Your package has arrived. Liu.Sen was concentrating on polishing the branch step by step, referring to the book. Please open it for me. If it is a letter from Lupin, please write a reply for me. Okay, let me see. It looks like your trademark, but it's bigger. And there's a note, it says it's for communication? Neville asked, puzzled. Liusen put down the branch in his hand, took a look and said happily, finally made it. In the package were two apple-led sized brands, shaped like the Galaxy Group's trademark, but the characters in the middle were smaller and three-dimensional, floating in the background of the universe. It was exactly the communicator Liusen had been thinking about. Liusen took the attached note, read it, and pressed the middle letter G according to the instructions. The slowly flowing galaxy in the background suddenly paused and emitted a bright light. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? After waiting quietly for a while, the badge responded, Liu.Sen. Although there was some interference, Liusen still recognized that it was Lupin. The voice came from Diagon Alley. After an excited exchange, Liusen turned the communication badge over. The back is bright copper and also has a unique function. Liusen used his finger as a pen and wrote a sentence on it. Point with a light stroke of the finger. The words written seemed to be carved on it, and when I pressed lightly on the pattern on the edge, the words soon slowly disappeared. Point after a while, another paragraph of text emerged, naturally written by Lupin. Front call, back text message. Galaxy Communicator 001 experimental version. After Liusen proposed the concept of mobile phones, Lupin has been taking time to study it, and the finished product was only completed today. This is a good thing to make money. Liusen's eyes lit up, and he scared Norrie so much that he stepped back repeatedly. In the next few days, Liusen continued to study his great project of making sticks. During class, Liusen quietly read the information on making magic wands, and then carved, polished, and painted them in his dormitory. When he encountered difficulties, he would discuss with his senior Cedric and look up information together, but the first test piece was scrapped within a minute of being made. Liusen just waved it and chanted gentle breeze, and after a gust of wind, the magic wand began to smoke. More than a dozen of them had different problems, so Liusen had to ask Master Ollivander for advice. Lupin happened to be free, so Liusen asked him to make a trip, and soon Ollivander's voice was heard on the communicator. After a few polite words, Liusen asked about the problem he encountered. Ollivander is indeed a wand making master. In just a few words, he pointed out the misunderstandings that Liusen might encounter and the solutions. Liusen suddenly became enlightened. With the master's guidance, Liusen quickly corrected the plan and eliminated the errors in the production process. Finally, on the day before Halloween, the first stable and reliable homemade magic wand was born. Carrying a homemade magic wand, Liusen walked into the transfiguration classroom with a proud step. But he soon threw his homemade wand aside because the thunder wand was still more popular. In the charms class, Professor Flitwick finally agreed to let the little wizards use wands. The first spell to be practiced is a classic levitation charm. There is a light feather placed in front of each little wizard, and their task is to cast the spell correctly. To make the feather float, Hermione still ignored Liusen, Harry and Ron. She was the first to perform the spell successfully, and won 5 points for Gryffindor. Of course, this was expected by everyone. After all, she used a levitation spell to catch Neville, who fell from the sky last month. Ron recited the spell loudly in defiance. Wingardium Leviosa. Sap, sap. He waved his arms vigorously and read the last word hard, but it was of no use. You should wave your arms more gently. Just a single stroke will do. And the way you pronounce it is totally wrong. You should pronounce it gently as Wingardium Leviosa instead of putting the emphasis on sa. After saying this, Hermione shook her head in disgust and turned to help other students. Ron said disdainfully to Harry and Liu-Sen, "Look at how cocky she is. She thinks she's the first one to learn the levitation charm. Isn't that right, Liu-Sen? You already knew it before school started." But when he turned around, he saw Hermione had turned her head back again and said disdainfully, "Humph. Some people don't study hard themselves, but brag about their roommates learning faster. Don't you feel ashamed?" Ron was immediately furious. "What do you care? Liu-Sen is my best buddy, and he learns things much faster than you." Liu-Sen, who was caught in the middle, smiled awkwardly, not knowing how to persuade the 2-point, but Hermione turned her spearhead towards him. "Learn quickly? It's only because your wand is special. Save the time you spend on swindling and doing business and read more serious books. Oh, by the way, I heard that someone is still thinking about his good buddy's apostrophe sister who is not in school. TSK. Hermione bombarded Liu-Sen with a barrage of questions, causing the surrounding little wizards to sneer. Liu-Sen and Ron were suddenly extremely embarrassed. They were about to explain themselves when Professor Flitwick asked, "Are you practicing magic, children?" He was attracted by the argument of several people and keenly realized that the topic they were talking about was definitely not the levitation spell. Liu-Sen controlled the muscles on his face, forced a smile and said, "Of course, Professor. Hermione, the top student in the grade, is discussing the levitation spell with me." He emphasized the words "first in grade" and was furious at Hermione's irrelevant mockery. For the first time, he felt that Hermione was drifting away from the perfect image in his memory. Liu-Sen gently put down the invincible thunder wand with its own lightning in his hand and took out the hopping willow wand he had just made from his arms. This wand has not yet been finely painted and still has the original willow branched shape, and its appearance is very inconspicuous. "Wingardium Leviosa," Liu-Sen chanted quickly, and with a flick of his wrist, the feather on the table was immediately lifted up by the breeze and floated into the air. Professor Flitwick looked at the branch wand in Liu-Sen's hand in surprise, and then nodded to express his satisfaction with the levitation spell just now. Hermione glared at Liu-Sen, but she was still unconvinced and said, "Who knows what's so special about this wand?" Liu-Sen smiled, looked around, and picked up a toothpick that someone had thrown away from the ground. Amid the puzzled looks of the crowd, he pointed to the feather on Ron's desk and said, "Wingardium Leviosa." The toothpick couldn't stand the magic power and instantly caught fire at the tip, but Ron's feather flew up all the way to the ceiling. The little wizard who was watching the fun was stunned and shouted in his heart, "Is this possible?" Liu-Sen elegantly held the burning toothpick like a match, waved it in front of Hermione who was standing there in a daze, and blew out the flame. The choking green smoke blew on Hermione's face, and she suddenly woke up, as if from a dream. She sat back in her seat, as if she had lost her strength. Her eyes were red and tears of grievance were rolling in her eyes, but she stubbornly refused to fall. After class, Ron walked around while imitating Hermione with a rich expression and corrected his classmates in a haughty tone. "You have to read "sis" softly, you can't read "o". Sap. Haha. Who does she think she is? Professor McGonagall? What happened in the end? She even dared to challenge Liu-Sen. She's been taught a lesson. No wonder she has no friends." Bang. Hermione happened to hear what Ron said, and she pushed him away heavily and left quickly. Ron snorted, ignored it and continued chatting. Liu-Sen's thunder wand was sealed by Professor Flitwick again. He walked while chanting the levitation spell with the thunder wand. Although he could not use the thunder wand to release magic, thanks to the internal sealing chains, the magic circuit of the levitation spell appeared in his mind like slow motion, which made him understand the levitation spell more thoroughly. Liu-Sen, who was concentrating on improving his proficiency, naturally didn't notice what Hermione had just done. After returning to the dormitory, Liu-Sen handed the humping willow wand to Ron, who was still using a second-hand one, and said, "Ron, try this wand." Ron was a little surprised, but he still took it happily. He tried it and found that it was actually better than his own. It hasn't been painted yet. See if you can get used to it. I can adjust it. Liusen explained. Ron said a little embarrassedly. But you made this with great difficulty. Liu.Sen joked. It's like you and Harry playing wizard chess. The result is no surprise, but the process is important. You both had a lot of fun, right? The same goes for the joy of making wands. Bah, that sounds weird. Anyway, you don't understand the joy of making wands, Harry. On the side, I felt offended, but after thinking about it, it seemed nothing was wrong. I was speechless. Chapter 32. Sir Nicholas asks for a kill online. At dinner time, several people came to the auditorium and were surprised to find that it had been newly decorated. The candles on the ceiling were all covered with skull-shaped pumpkins, and groups of magical bats were flying around. There were black and purple banners and decorations everywhere. Halloween is here. Liusen had some impression that this was a special day. What exactly would happen? Liusen was a little uneasy. The dishes at the dinner were richer than usual, and the little wizards were all pleasantly surprised and began to enjoy the feast. At this time, ghosts came in through the walls, danced happily, and made their presence felt in this special festival. Each of the 4 houses has its own resident ghost, and Gryffinder's most popular ghost is of course Sir Nicholas. He has a relatively calm personality and can help any little wizard who is lost or encounters difficulties. It can be said that he is fully worthy of the title of Sir, but there is one thing: if you call him by his nickname, Nearly Headless Nick, he will show you the broken neck without hesitation. Liusen pursed his lips with the tablecloth and said politely, "Happy holidays, sir." Nicholas nodded slightly, bowed in an elegant ancient gentleman's manner, and said, "Happy holidays, Mr. Liusen." He hesitated for a moment and said to Liusen, "It's like this, Liusen. I have been observing Peeves's condition for some time, and it seems that he is in a very stable condition. I think the time may be ripe. So, I wonder if I can take up a little of your time later." Liusen knew that the other party couldn't wait to be chopped, so he readily agreed. After receiving the reply, Sir Nicholas thanked excitedly and then went ahead to make preparations. Liusen quickly sped up his eating speed and wolfed down the food on his plate. Harry asked curiously, "What does the Lord want to see you about?" Ron also slowed down his chewing speed and said vaguely, "You will miss a lot of delicious food if you leave now." Liusen took a sip of juice and explained, "Sir Nicholas told me before that he always wanted to join the Dullahan Club, but they didn't agree." Harry was puzzled. "Why? Isn't he headless?" Ron also agreed. "Yeah. His head fell off. Why doesn't the Headless Horseman Club let him join?" Liusen said with a smile, "Have you forgotten? He is almost headless. It's still attached. The ghosts of the Headless Knight Club are all completely separated, so that they can perform performances like flying head in the air and head replacement, right?" "Who knows?" Harry reacted at this time. His eyes widened and said, "Then you are not going to?" He looked around in panic, and seeing that no one was paying attention, he stroked his neck with his hand. Liusen understood and said with a smile, "That's right. I'll go and chop him with my sword and be back in a matter of minutes." Ron hurriedly grabbed Liusen, who was about to stand up, and said nervously, Your thunder flame lightning sword makes such a loud noise. The professors will find out. Be careful." Wait. Isn't your wand sealed? How about use mine?" As he said that, he took out the hopping willow wand that Liusen gave him. Liusen chuckled, approached the 2 men and whispered, "I'll tell you something in secret. Illumination can still be used a few more times. Dumbledore helped me open a back door on the seal." The 2 swallowed their saliva and thought of the people who had been harmed by the thunder wand: Peeves, whose head was chopped off, and Hagrid's hut, whose roof was blown off. Thinking of this, the 2 suddenly became worried about Sir Nicholas. To be on the safe side, Liusen took out another communicator from his bag and gave it to Ron before leaving, and told him how to use it. Then he went alone to the empty classroom where they had agreed to meet. Sir Nicholas was floating around nervously. If he had feet, He would be pacing back and forth at this time. Liusen thought, "Sir, I'm here. Sorry to have kept you waiting." Liusen said. Sir Nicholas once again performed an impeccable ancient gentleman's etiquette and said politely, "I have been waiting for hundreds of years. This short moment is nothing. Thank you for your trouble, Mr. Liusen." Liu-Sen didn't say much. They had talked about it before. Ever since they found Peeves with only a head left, the ghosts had been observing each other for a long time. Aside from the fact that only a head was left, Peeves' condition was stable, with no signs of dissipating or anything else going wrong. And ever since he was rescued by Filch last time, he changed his habit of playing pranks and found another happy thing: catching little wizards who made mistakes with Filch. This caused many young wizards, including the Weasley twins, to complain. Liusen even received more than a dozen anonymous letters suggesting that Peeves be completely eliminated. "Sir, are you ready?" Liusen asked, taking out his thunder wand. Sir Nicholas was unusually excited. "I have been looking forward to this day for so long. Please." After that, he stood with his head held high and closed his eyes, waiting like a brave warrior ready to sacrifice his life. Liusen chanted softly, fluorescent shining. The long-lost thunder and flame lightsaber mode was instantly activated. After Dumbledore's guidance, the power of lightsaber mode was easier to control. Liusen made a slight adjustment, and the temperature of the thunder flame sword was completely restrained, replaced by a cold and chilling light that was as real as a substance. Of course, the sword was still surrounded by brilliant thunder. Liusen gestured a few times and scratched his head. This was the first time he had ever cut someone's neck. Sir Nicholas opened his eyes and took a peek and saw that Liusen hesitated for a long time before chopping down, thinking that the other party was worried about his safety. "My dear friend Liusen, just go ahead and chop with confidence. Don't worry about me. I'm not afraid of pain. On the day I died, I was chopped dozens of times by the executioner with a blunt knife before I died. I don't care about this one cut at all." The knight still showed hesitation when he said this, and it was obvious that he was still afraid of death. But he had always wanted to join the Headless Horseman Club, but had been rejected too many times, and he had long since hated the piece of flesh still attached to his neck. Sir Nicholas was a little excited when he thought about being beheaded, joining the Headless Horseman Club, meeting new friends, and reaching the pinnacle of his ghost life. He let go of the last bit of fear and encouraged Liusen, "Come on, my friend. Peeves has proven that your magic sword can safely cut ghosts. So what are you still worried about? Go ahead and chop." Liusen saw that Sir Nicholas had been nagging and in a trance because of his beheading and had lost his usual elegant and aristocratic temperament, and he couldn't help shaking his head. He thought that for a long time, people had called him Nick, the nearly headless, and it really made him resentful. Chapter 33. I finally cut off my head. Yeah, sir, I'm not worried about anything else, but can you separate the head a little? I'm afraid I'll chop it crookedly. Liusen held the magic wand in his hand and danced a beautiful sword flower. The Jazz suddenly realized what was happening and quickly lifted up the head, revealing the remaining flesh on the neck. Liusen no longer hesitated. He looked at the right position, took a deep breath, and slashed with his sword. A white light flashed by, and before Nicholas could react, his head had been separated. Sir Nicholas slowly loosened his hands that were holding his head in disbelief, and then controlled his head to float in the air. He turned his head excitedly and saw his headless body. He waved his hand and took a few more steps, completely in control. Great. Melon's beard. My body. My head. They're finally separated. Ha 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 ha. Sir Nicholas's head flew up and down happily in the classroom. No one will ever call me almost headless Nick again. I can join the Headless Club. I'm going to tell my friends. Oh, and by the way, Jazz, who was about to fly away, turned back. He put his head and body back together again and expressed his gratitude to Liusen formally and respectfully, but when he bowed, his head rolled down. Sir, you have to get used to the feeling of having your head separated from your body. No need to thank me, it's just a piece of cake. Liusen picked up his head and said point Sir Nicholas hummed a classical tune and floated away happily, shouting on the way, "Today is really a day worth celebrating. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha." Liu-Sen did not take back the Thunder Flame Light Sword immediately. The sealed wand could only use the illumination spell under Dumbledore's control, and there were only 6 times left after this time. It was a rare opportunity to use the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword, so Liusen naturally couldn't miss the chance. He closed his eyes, carefully felt the magic power flowing in it, and adjusted the output magic structure and running line point in a blink of an eye. 2 months have passed since the start of the school year. Liusen has made new gains in class every day, and he has not fallen behind in Chinese magic point recently. I have conducted in-depth research on the production of magic wands and successfully made a finished product. These factors combined have made Liusen's affinity for the Thunder Wand even stronger. At the same time, his understanding of magic, especially the lighting spell, has deepened. Without terminating the form of the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword, Liusen directly tried to change the operating state of the magic and successfully converted several innovative modes that he had mastered one by one. The Thunderblade became brighter and brighter, and the temperature of the external light suddenly rose. The length of the Thunderblade also soared to more than 10 meters in a breath. The temperature of the entire classroom soared instantly. This is the 40-meter broadsword mode that further increases the attack power and explosive power. Liusen certainly didn't want to chop the ceiling again, so he quickly retracted this violent mode and transformed it into a completely harmless state. The flame completely dissipated, leaving only a soft white light, which shortened little by little until the light beam was retracted into the wand. Then the entire wand emitted a soft white light. Glow stick mode. Liusen wanted to try to make the magic wand fly by itself, but that involved the use of a levitation spell, and currently the Thunder Wand could only use an illumination spell, so he had to give up. Liusen stared at the soft glow stick magic wand for a while, reluctant to interrupt his precious time, and suddenly thought of the scene of cutting open Nicholas' head just now. It's not that Liusen didn't chop enough, but that he thought of a problem. After Sir Nicholas was split apart, his head and body were independent, but he could freely control his body and head. So which one is the main body, the head or the body? How is it controlled remotely? How is the energy transmitted? Although it was a groundless fantasy, it inspired Liusen. He controlled the glow stick in his hand to change from glowing throughout the stick to glowing only at the tip, and then combined the magic stimulation of the lightsaber and the telekinetic magic transmission architecture of the levitation spell. He slowly and laboriously adjusted the output of magic. Liusen, who was concentrating, felt the lightning and the magic wand crackling, and quickly tried and built Liusen's ideas and new structures. Wrong configurations were eliminated one by one, and the correct route in the arc flow was quickly found. A smile appeared on Liusen's face, and the tip of his wand became brighter and brighter, but the light did not scatter like a flashlight like the standard version, but gathered into a ballpoint, and with a slight shake of Liusen's wrist, it slowly detached and floated up. Yeah. A new mode has been created. This one is called, Liu-Sen observed the ball of light floating in the air. It was about the size of a tennis ball. The light was soft and not dazzling, and it could move freely according to the command of the magic wand. Let's call it the lighting ball mode. Liusen named it casually. After directing the light ball to fly for a while, Liusen felt a little hungry again, so he turned off the light ball and returned to the auditorium. I hope I can catch the pie, Liusen thought as he walked. When he passed by 2 girls who were gossiping, he overheard their conversation. She cried in the ladies' room all afternoon. Yeah, she must be angry. You know, she always speaks arrogantly. She doesn't have any friends at all. She deserves it. Who told Hermione to be so pretentious? She always shows off her knowledge. In fact, there are many nerds like her in Hufflepuff. Liu-Sen paused, then hurriedly quickened his pace. He remembered. A troll will run out of the basement soon. And Hermione is still in the ladies' room and doesn't know what's going on. Entering the auditorium, the dinner was still going on. The atmosphere was cheerful and relaxed. Every little wizard was enjoying the food and happily chatting with the classmates around them while eating. Liu Sen glanced at the teacher's seats and found that Luo was still there, and he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. After sitting next to Harry and Ron, Liu Sen began to quickly sweep away the delicacies on the table in front of their shocked eyes. Wow, I rarely see you eat like this. By the way, did you chop it smoothly? Ron asked in a low voice at the end. Liu Sen swallowed the food and boasted about his heroic performance when he just chopped Nicholas. Then he pulled the two people over and whispered, "We'll talk about Nicholas's job change to the Diagon later." "Do you know where Hermione is?" Ron said indifferently. "Who knows? Maybe the know-it-all is reading a book." Harry smiled nonchalantly as well. Liu Sen told the two what he had heard. They looked at each other. They felt a little guilty about Hermione being made to cry, but they still said they didn't care. "Who made her so annoying? Is it Liu Sen? Think about what she said about you," Ron said. Liu Sen recalled the scene when Hermione mocked him during the charms class and instantly understood why she had no friends. But if they don't save her, the wisdom of the three little ones will be gone. Who will lead Harry and Ron to fight Voldemort? Himself? No. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Sighing, Liu Sen had no choice but to say, "Ron, Harry, I have a feeling something big is going to happen tonight." Chapter 34. Liu Sen help. Women. 039. Restroom. Come quickly. Harry and Ron had witnessed Liu Sen's miraculous predictions several times, and each time they came true. Hearing that Liu Sen was going to make another prediction, the two of them immediately became alert and pricked up their ears in wait. "I saw some images of you two." "Well, how can I put it?" Harry suddenly became worried. "About us? What happened? What did you see?" Seeing that the two people's emotions were aroused, Liu Sen continued, "Actually, it's about you two and Hermione. I just did a fortune telling, and the fates of the three of you are closely linked. You will experience many ups and downs together in the future." Harry looked incredulous, but given the accuracy of Liu Sen's predictions, his expression was instantly conflicted. "No way. My fate is connected with that nasty guy? Ugh. So disgusting," Ron said with an exaggerated expression. Liu Sen glanced at the teacher's seats and saw that Professor Quirrell, who was about to cause trouble, was still eating slowly. He thought that there was still plenty of time. An unexpected huge monster will appear soon, and Hermione will be in danger. You should hurry to the ladies' room to find her. There is still time. Just take her away and everything will be fine. After Liu Sen finished speaking, he picked up a garlic-flavored spare rib and started chewing it. Ron was reluctant to give up the delicious food on the table, and Harry was skeptical about Liu Sen's words. "Are you serious? A giant monster? In Hogwarts? How is that possible?" Harry said in disbelief. Ron looked anxious at this time and asked, "Are you attracted to her? Are you looking for an excuse for us to coax her into a good mood? But don't you have a crush on my sister?" When Liu Sen heard this, the ribs he was chewing dropped onto the plate with a plop. He glared at Ron with a look of astonishment on his face. "Who told you that I have a crush on your sister? She's still a child." "Arsehole." Liu Sen picked up the ribs and hesitated for a moment, then took another bite and rolled his eyes. "Hermione is not my type at all. You two should keep them. Seriously, it could be dangerous soon." Seeing that the two were still hesitating and looking at the food and snacks on the table from time to time, Liu Sen added, "Don't worry, when danger comes, the food will be packed and sent back to the common room, and Halloween will continue. You just hurry up and find Hermione and go back to the common room directly. If there is anything, contact us through the communicator. Oh, by the way, here's this for you." Liu Sen wiped his hands, took out a stack of talismans from his pocket, and stuffed them into Harry's hands. "This is a Golden Bell talisman, Godspeed talisman, and Light Body talisman. Just inject magic power into them and stick them on your body. They will increase your defense, speed, and agility. This time it's foolproof. Go." Harry had seen the effect of this Chinese talisman paper, so he put it in his pocket solemnly. Suddenly he asked, "But why don't you go?" "Ah, well, Hermione's fate is linked to both of you, not me. And if I go, the scene will be too bloody and the children will have nightmares. After another round of deception, the two of them left the banquet. Looking back every few steps, Halloween is an important traditional festival in the west of this world, and it is even more important in the wizarding world. So the banquet is grand and gorgeous, with an unusually rich variety of dishes. No wonder Ron and Harry were reluctant to leave. Liu Sen himself also had a rare feast point after half an hour. Liu Sen realized why these two guys were so slow. They should have replied. He looked at the dining table and was shocked because Quirrell had disappeared without a trace. Broken. Liu Sen hurriedly took out his communicator and called his friends. But at this moment, Professor Quirrell suddenly ran in from the door in panic. Troll. In the underground classroom. I thought you should know. After shouting this, Professor Quirrell fell to the ground and fainted. The auditorium was suddenly in chaos. The little wizards were frightened and screamed, fleeing like headless flies, not knowing where to go. Dumbledore had to release several dazzling fireworks and shout in a deafening voice before he could control the situation. Liu Sen didn't understand what was so scary about a stupid giant. If he wasn't afraid of getting his hands dirty, he could have solved it with a lighting spell. Just tell me, how many pieces do you want it cut into? How well done do you want it? Under the arrangement of the principal, the young wizards lined up and followed the supervisor back to the lounge of their respective colleges. Liu Sen took advantage of the chaos and hid under the table to call his friends again. This time they responded, but the call was hung up immediately. What's going on? He actually hung up on me. Liu Sen asked, puzzled. After a while, the communicator vibrated. It was a text message. Women's restroom. Help. Come quickly. Liu Sen was really speechless. He didn't understand why the situation couldn't be solved, even though he had explained everything so clearly and sent both intelligence and equipment. But there is a better solution in front of him. Liu Sen certainly won't refuse the lazy option. Principal, I have something to report. Liu Sen stood up and shouted. Hey, where are the teachers? In less than a minute, the teacher's seat was empty. The little wizards had basically evacuated. The Weasley twins had just taken a lot of snacks from the Slytherin table. They were almost at the end of the team. They heard Liu Sen's voice saying to him, Liu Sen, hurry up and catch up. Dumbledore and the professors are going to deal with the troll. After that, the two of them trotted away. Liu Sen was the only one left in the empty auditorium, looking disheveled. Did the wizards escape so quickly in an emergency? Liu Sen had no choice but to go to the women's restroom alone to rescue his friend whose situation was unknown. On the way, Liu Sen took out 3 yellow talismans while running, and after pinching his fingers and chanting a spell, paper cranes quickly took shape. With a light breath, the paper cranes flapped their wings and flew into the sky. Special skill. Tell the teacher remotely. There is a message from Liu Sen on the paper crane. In the women's restroom on the first floor, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are in danger. The 3 paper cranes are respectively to find Principal Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, and Professor Snape. Near the women's restroom, Liu Sen could smell a horrible odor from a distance. It was like stinky tofu was poured into a dry toilet and a string of firecrackers was thrown in. It stinked. Liu Sen snorted coldly. He knew that this was emitted from the giant monster. There was no time to cast a bubblehead spell or a breath holding spell to dispel the disgusting smell. Saving people was the most important thing. Liu Sen kicked open the toilet door without hesitation. The toilet was in a mess. A row of wash basins against the wall were smashed to pieces, and several toilet cubicles collapsed. But the most eye-catching thing is the giant monster holding a big stick in the middle of the toilet. The troll's skin was grey and looked like granite. Its head was bald like a big coconut. Its arms were extremely long, and its legs were short and thick. Its feet had deformed toes and thick, hardened skin, and were as huge and rough as tree stumps. But Liu Sen couldn't help but burst out laughing. That's it. The reason is simple. This giant monster is not as tall as imagined. Liu Sen estimated that it is only half a head taller than Hagrid. Just this thing scared the hell out of all the students in the school. Haha, it's nothing. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35. Just tell me, how many pieces do you want to cut the giant into? The troll was attracted by the sound of kicking the door. It turned its head blankly, and after finding Liu Sen, it seemed very happy. It immediately walked towards him staggeringly, dragging its stick point. At this time, Liu Sen saw that one of the doors of the toilet cubicle was opened a crack, and Harry and others stuck their heads out with surprise. They had obviously been in a panic and their wizard robes and faces were covered in dust and sweat. What's wrong with you? You're just a giant monster and you're in such a mess. Where's the talisman I gave you? Liu Sen quickly walked around the giant monster waving a wooden stick and said, The thrilling scene made the three little ones sweat. Harry and Ron picked up the rubble and water pipes on the ground with ease and threw them at the stupid troll to help Liu Sen attract the troll's attention. They threw and retreated, circling the troll. Apparently, that's what they did before. After they got together, Ron said, your talisman accidentally got wet. It stopped working. Harry and Ron looked at each other awkwardly. Hermione, who was protected behind them, was still a little frightened and kept staring at the troll nervously. Keep your head down, Hermione warned loudly. Several people dodged the troll's stick again and were forced into a corner by the troll. But this time, Liu Sen quickly took out the thunder wand and skillfully activated the thunder flame lightning sword. He asked Harry and the other man who were hiding behind him, what's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you to find Hermione and leave? That should give you enough time, right? After saying that, he swung his sword and only the handle of the stick was left. The giant swung again and realized that something was missing. It used its small brain to think for several seconds before it realized that the stick was broken. After a few more seconds, it realized that it was the little guys in front of it who did it. It was so angry that it waved its big hands and hit us. Liu Sen was not panicked. He would not show mercy to the enemy who came to his door. With a flick of his wrist, the thunder flame form instantly changed. The sword body quickly became longer, and the heat emitted became more terrifying. He whispered quickly, lighting technique, thunder flame 40-meter sword mode. Die. Before he could finish the word die, Hermione behind him suddenly grabbed Liu Sen and said, wait, do we have to kill people? Can't we try a gentler method? The thunder flame light sword was at the critical moment of mode transformation, but was interrupted by Hermione, causing it to miss the conversion node of the rune model and the interlocking magic collapsed instantly. Oh, don't put it out. Without the support of magic, the shadow of the 40-meter broadsword that was about to take shape flashed twice in the air and then disappeared. The next moment, the giant monster's big hand slapped Liu Sen fiercely. The powerful force knocked him out and smashed the last toilet cubicle. Suddenly, wood chips and smoke flew everywhere, and Liu Sen was crushed in the collapsed wooden rubble. There was no movement. No. Liu Sen, Harry and Ron exclaimed immediately. They didn't expect that the situation that was originally in their grasp of victory would be reversed in an instant. The two were extremely anxious and wanted to go to rescue, but they couldn't get away. The giant monster is already very close, and the smell of it is as suffocating as biological weapons. Harry and Ron separated to the left and right in tacit understanding. They ran and waved their arms, trying to attract the troll's attention and create a chance for their companion to escape. Hermione gasped immediately. She had only kindly reminded Liu Sen to prevent him from being blinded by killing, but she never expected such an accident to happen. Ron tried desperately to throw rocks at the troll, but for the slow-witted big guy, it was not even enough to tickle him. Unfortunately, Harry stepped on the slippery floor tiles and fell to the ground. Before he could turn over, he was caught by the troll's big hand. The troll grabbed Harry's feet and lifted them above his head. He tilted his head and thought for a moment, thinking that this kind of food should be similar to lamb. So he opened his big mouth and was about to bite it. Hermione suddenly let out an earth-shattering scream. Harry bent his body desperately to avoid the troll's bite, but his head was immediately grabbed by the troll's other hand, and there was no way he could escape the next bite. Ron's eyes were bloodshot, and he was about to go forward. and fight the troll. Suddenly, a hand stretched out from the rubble behind them, followed by a crash of bricks and stones falling, and Liu Sen actually stood up from the ruins. He didn't have time to pull his feet out from the deep pit. Seeing Harry's situation, he quickly drew talismans in his hands and then slapped Harry with a palm at the last moment. A faint golden light hit Harry at the last moment before the troll bit him. The giant's teeth chewed hard, and there was a sound of crunching. Several sounds that made people's scalps numb came from its mouth, but the next moment, the troll made a puzzled humming sound, and he felt that something was wrong with the food in his mouth. His brain circuit did not understand what happened at all, but it seemed that something hard fell out of his mouth. There was a crisp sound similar to the sound of a stone falling. Hermione and Ron looked over quickly and found that it was a broken and yellowed front tooth. Harry opened his tightly closed eyes. He thought he was going to be bitten in half, but suddenly a warm current protected him. The troll's stupid brain only now felt the pain in his mouth. All his teeth were broken. The wailing giant angrily threw Harry down from his hand, and the other party immediately fell freely from a height of more than 3 meters. But a golden light flashed on his body, and the moment he touched the ground, everyone only heard a melodious humming sound, like the sound of a church bell. The surprise came so suddenly that the three realized what Liu Sen had done, and turned to look over. Liu Sen's foot was stuck, but he still responded to the others. Golden bell talisman, is it effective? Before they could say anything, the giant monster with broken teeth wailed and opened its mouth, revealing its bloody gums. It stomped its feet in pain, waving its arms around, destroying everything around it. Liu Sen searched anxiously for his magic wand. The elementary spells he knew were mostly those related to daily life and auxiliary. He still had to rely on the thunder flame lightning sword for lethality. At this moment Harry came to his senses and shouted, "Ron, we have to do something." The two were very nervous and thought quickly about what spell they could use, but they found that they only knew a levitation spell. So, without any prior agreement, they both said in unison, "Wingardium Leviosa." 2 slightly larger bricks flew lightly over the giant monster's head. Hermione also quickly drew out her wand, intending to help them fight the troll. Liu Sen shouted, "Hermione, help me find my wand." Hermione weighed the pros and cons in an instant, simply agreed, and began to help him look for it. Harry and Ron controlled the stones and smashed them firmly on the troll's head, but the troll was in a frenzy due to toothache, and these 2 small stones could not cause any damage or dizziness. Instead, they attracted the troll's attention. Hermione suddenly shouted in surprise, "Found it!" At this time, the troll had cornered Harry and Ron, and was about to reach out to catch them. Liu Sen quickly said, "Great. Throw the wand over here." Hermione took 2 steps and threw the wand in her hand as quickly as she could, using all her strength. Liu Sen took it and looked at it. "Huh. This is not my magic wand." Hermione blinked. "Oh no. Isn't this black wand in her hand Liu Sen's?" How come she threw it wrong? When she was nervous, the troll had already caught Harry and Ron, who had nowhere to retreat. It held 1 child in each hand. It was in no mood to eat them, so it just picked them up and crushed them in its hands. As Harry and Ron wailed, the troll gradually increased its strength. "It's too late." Hermione. Levitation spell. Liu Sen shouted, holding Hermione's wand in his hand, ready to go. Hermione understood. "Okay. Wingardium Leviosa, transform. Quickly. Enlarge quickly. Duang. Pa. Puff." At the same time, several professors rushed over after hearing the news, and the first to bear the brunt was the crazy Snape. When he opened the door, he heard a heavy object fall to the ground, and then, a red and white mixture splashed all over him. Snape wiped his face with a trembling face, revealing a desperate and crazy look. But when he saw the 4 little wizards standing there intact, he breathed a sigh of relief, especially when he found a pair of green eyes. He completely let go of his worries and his eyes became clear again. Chapter 36 Summary. After the war, the images in women's restrooms are now completely restricted. The entire screen is mosaiced and can only be broadcast in black and white. Professor Snape, who dealt with strange animal organs and potions with surprising designs all year round, didn't react much to this. Professor McGonagall, who followed behind, vomited with a groan, followed by Professor Flitwick, whose face turned pale. The next person to come was Quirrell, who started dancing with joy after taking a look and then fainted on the spot with a cap point by the time Headmaster Dumbledore finally arrived. The situation had been brought under control, and with the help of several professors, Liusen and his companions finally recovered from the hell point. Professor McGonagall's face was still grim. She tried hard to calm her pounding heart and said tremblingly, Who can give me a reasonable explanation? Why didn't you return to the common room? And you left the troll. Vomit. Thinking of the scene of the room full of red and white things just now, Professor McGonagall felt sick again. Harry and Ron looked at each other and stammered, This time Hermione volunteered. Actually, it was me. I read about the troll in a book and wanted to solve it myself to prove myself. But I messed up. If they hadn't come to rescue me, I really don't know what would have happened. Liu Sen sneered. Forget it. What's the point of you taking the responsibility? No one made any mistakes. Just tell the truth. Hermione, who hadn't been blamed for many people, clenched her fists and glared at the talkative Liusen. Harry felt that Liusen's words made sense, so he thought for a moment and said, Professor, we made Hermione cry. She ran to the bathroom and cried all afternoon, seeing that his friends had told the truth. Ron continued. Liusen predicted that something bad would happen, so he asked Harry and I to come to Hermione in advance. Liusen hurriedly whispered, Shh, can you please not mention the prophecy? But the professors had heard it and were looking towards him. Liusen had no choice but to give up and said, Well, I asked them to come, but I don't know what happened in the middle, and they missed the chance to avoid the giant monster. Harry explained. After we found Hermione, we stood outside the toilet door and persuaded Hermione to come out, but when Hermione heard that it was Liusen's prophecy that made us come here, she got even angrier. She couldn't say anything. We've worn our lips out from talking to her. Ron looked at Hermione helplessly. Harry pushed up his glasses and said, Then we saw Peeves. He helps Filch patrol every day. It would be terrible if he found us standing outside the girls' toilet door sneaking around. Yeah. So, we ran to the toilet, and before we could coax Hermione down, the troll appeared out of nowhere. Ron shrugged helplessly. Harry went on to say, the troll didn't notice us at first, and we could have taken Hermione away quietly, but suddenly, Liu Sen didn't understand this before, so he couldn't help but ask curiously, what happened suddenly? Ron pretended to be angry and said, Suddenly your communicator rang. The troll found us immediately. It almost smashed us into meat patties. Liu Sen said embarrassedly, You guys are so slow. Do you blame me? When I saw your text message asking for help, everyone was evacuating to the common room. I couldn't find the teacher, so I had to use a paper crane to send a message, and then I came to save the situation in person. Snape said angrily, So you foolishly put yourselves in danger. Do you know how dangerous trolls are? Many adult wizards may not be able to deal with them. Liu Sen glanced at a certain saintly scholar and said indifferently, It's okay. If someone didn't dislike slicing, I could have done it with one sword. The scene would have been much more beautiful. Snape said viciously, That's because you are lucky enough. Adult trolls are much taller than this, and they are extremely resistant to magic. Little wizards like you are not enough to fill their teeth. Liu Sen suddenly realized that this guy who was only half a head taller than Hagrid was just a baby. No wonder the little wizards were so scared when they heard the troll was coming. But what's the use of high magic resistance? The physical damage of the thunder flame lightning sword is unacceptable. Thousands of degrees of plasma flames plus 100,000 volts of thunder. Even steel will be split for you to see. Professor Flitwick gave fair praise. Nice magnification spell. But what is the appearance? Everyone turned their eyes to the center of the field, where there was a large iron lump as big as a double bed. Liu Sen scratched his head and said, Professor, it's a book. The first thing that came to my mind was books. Reading makes people kind. As he said that, he glanced at a certain academic master. A certain top student tried hard to hide his body behind Harry and Ron, and lowered his head to count the floor tiles. Professor McGonagall had no comment on Liu Sen's transfiguration. Although the shape was a bit rough, the changes in material and weight were very appropriate. She had never seen many students of this age who could do this, but the old man's stomach churned again when he thought of the giant monster meat stuffing that was mosaicked under the giant steel book and splashed to every corner at this moment. Harry accidentally saw that Snape's leg was injured and bleeding. Before Harry could say anything, he was frightened by Snape's stern eyes and dared not say a word. They rescued their companions and destroyed the giant monster, but the professors did not give Liusen and his companions extra points. Instead, they sent them away. The common room was decorated with a Halloween theme, and all the food was delivered. The little wizards were eating, drinking, and playing happily. A few people quickly washed and changed their clothes and joined in. The three little ones recalled the fight with the giant monster just now, and they all felt like they had survived a disaster. It was also a little exciting, but Liusen didn't feel anything. It was just a giant monster, a small scene. Hermione's saintly behavior almost led to a big mistake. Liusen didn't mention it again, but the look in his eyes became more and more unpleasant. Harry and Ron were quite calm. After experiencing the thrilling adventure together, they completely put aside their past grudges with Hermione and chatted happily about everything. They no longer felt that they disliked each other. Ron exaggerated the story of how the group bravely fought the giant monster and told his classmates the story. The atmosphere in the room instantly reached a climax. Liusen left quietly after eating and drinking. Although he was the main force in destroying the giant monster, he did not feel any sense of accomplishment at all and was even a little worried. There is no other reason, just not enough firepower. Liusen reflected on it and realized that he had relied too much on the Thunder Wand before. He only knew one move, the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword, and its variant, the 40-meter broadsword mode. Both of these are single target lethal magic that are excellent at breaking through defenses, but their only means of attack is slashing. Before, Liusen thought that he could chop down an opponent like the giant monster by himself, or two at a time. He even thought that he could chop down Voldemort with this move alone, but after today, Liusen finally understood the complexity of the battle. At that time, I just got interrupted by someone and lost the initiative on the battlefield. How will I face the mysterious and unpredictable Dark Wizard in the future? Insufficient defense. Too few means. The most critical thing is insufficient firepower. After Liusen finished summarizing, he began to flip through the book. Chapter 37 Magic Shotgun. Liusen came to the study room inside the door and frantically searched for attack spells. After a while, Liusen sighed dejectedly. After he encountered danger, he realized that the spells in the textbooks were at most for dealing with ghosts and zombies, and the focus was on life and production. How could offensive spells be written in elementary, junior high and high school textbooks? Another point is that high-level Chinese practitioners are all magic and martial arts dual cultivation. Magic assists, flying swords kill enemies, the physical fitness is very strong, and with the help of flying swords and magic, the attack power is directly off the charts. It is troublesome to attack directly with magic. In addition, high-level warlocks have a wide variety of magic weapons. Attack, defense, and assistance complement each other, but Liusen hadn't even mastered the elementary object control yet. He could only make small objects float, which was far from being able to kill enemies with a flying sword. He hadn't even passed the basics of weapon refining yet. Western wizarding schools, including Hogwarts, have more shortcomings, and the knowledge taught is also rare in terms of powerful magic. But this is normal in a peaceful era. In Liusen's impression, throughout the entire plot, only a few magic spells such as the Killing Curse, the Fiery Curse, and the God of Magic invented by Professor Snape when he was in school can be considered powerful. The former two are black magic that is not allowed to be used, but the latter can be studied if there is a chance. Think about the battles between wizards in the movies. Although the scenes are fancy and the light effects are colorful, most of them are just some weird little evil curses. The most powerful combat magic is actually the disarming spell, Liu Sen picked up a pen and paper and wrote a letter to Huazia's uncle, asking about attacking techniques. After thinking about it, he asked at the end of the letter whether China has developed a magic-driven communicator and whether China has a method to solve the problem of werewolf transformation. Liu Sen still sent this letter to his father and asked him to fax it directly. Back to China. Then Liu Sen wrote another letter to Dumbledore, strongly suggesting that the school strengthen security measures. You can't rely on professors when you're in trouble. You should start with a defense system that everyone can use. Liu Sen remembered that when Voldemort attacked the school, all the armor and statues could move and act as cannon fodder. This function should be used frequently, and there should be more practical lessons in defense against the dark arts and magical creatures classes. Thinking of this, Liu Sen really hopes that Lupin can come to class. Of course, the letter to Dumbledore was just a complaint. Liu Sen learned from his mistakes and decided to develop some self-defense weapons. With the successful experience of Ron's Hopping Willow Wand, Liu Sen made 2 more spare wands with these, and after thinking about it, he gave one to Neville. He simply upgraded the one he gave to Ron and made some minor adjustments to improve its stability point. He then found the Weir Light Winds to discuss the principles of the Licorice Wand and the mischievous Fake Wand point. When the twins heard Liu Sen talking about this, they were no longer sleepy. The two of them had a lot of experience in making magic props, and after a conversation, Liu Sen immediately had an epiphany. The Licorice Wand is used by wizards for cooking and snacks. It looks like a wand, but it tastes like sweet licorice. Even a young wizard who has never learned magic can emit a fragrant breeze when waving it. The principle contained in it is very valuable for reference. It has designed a semi-cured breeze spell that can be activated by just waving it. No need for the user to provide magic power or chant a spell. What does it mean to have your own magic power? In theory, muggles can use it. The fake magic wand is a funny prop. You won't notice anything unusual at first, but if you use it to cast a spell, any spell will only have ribbons and gold stars sprayed out from the tip of the wand. And it's accompanied by funny sound effects. Liu Sen would not play with such meaningless joke items, but the internal principles can also give Liu Sen inspiration. The seemingly useless and funny magic wand has an interesting internal structure. The caster's magic power and spells will be decomposed by the runes inside the wand, and the input magic power will be used to stimulate the design fixed magic. What is this? This is a converter. With such a reference, Liu Sen quickly designed a plan, and then worked with the twins and Cedric to produce a trial product. The next step was to find an experimenter. Argus, what are you busy with? The best experimenter Liu Sen found was Argus Filch, the administrator hated by the little wizards. The old man has been very happy recently. Peeves no longer causes him trouble and even helps him patrol everywhere. This makes Filch admire Liu Sen even more. He put down the brush in his hand, turned around and said in surprise, "It's Master Liu Sen. Hello. I heard that you killed a giant monster on Halloween night. That's amazing." He wiped his hands on himself, smoothed his sparse hair, tried to look presentable, and explained, I'm cleaning the words on the wall. Naughty little wizards always like to scribble on them. How annoying. Peeves has caught 3 this week, but I still can't manage them all. You know, the castle is too big." Liu Sen looked and saw a red heart painted on the wall with the initials of 2 little wizards in the middle. Filch must have been scrubbing with a brush for a while, and his forehead was covered with sweat. Unfortunately, the effect is average. Only half of the outline was erased. Try this. I made it recently. It should be suitable for your job. Liu Sen handed the test sample to Filch. The old administrator took it in confusion, for he had never seen such a strange thing. There were 2 tubes in the front, a small circle at the bottom of the middle part with a sharp hook inside, and the back was bent into a strange arc with a very strange shape. Filch turned it over and over, peered into the tube with one eye, squinted and asked, "Master Liu Sen, what is this for? Is it a muggle torture device?" Liu Sen quickly stopped Filch's dangerous move. He took it and demonstrated the correct way to hold it and introduced it. "This is called Energy Storage Multifunction Directional Magic Semi-Automatic Releaser." Filch was confused. What kind of magic or device is this? Liu SEN said with a profound look. You can call it magic shotgun or magic sprayer. Yes, this thing looks like a classic shotgun. It has 3 commonly used magics solidified inside. Do you see the paddles on the side? Clean, repair, and spell stop. The last paddle is for safety to prevent accidental activation. First switch to the function you need, then hold the spray gun like this, with your finger on the trigger, the nozzle facing the target, and pull the trigger. Come and try it. LIUSEN introduced carefully. Filch was skeptical, mainly because the shape was beyond his understanding. The old squib had never seen a gun, but when he pulled the trigger and instantly erased the stubborn graffiti on the wall, he was completely stunned. Tears welled up in Filch's eyes. He murmured, "Is this solved? This is magic. I can do magic. Master, did you see it? I just did magic. With this magic shotgun." The old man became more and more excited as he spoke, and he hugged the spray gun in his hand tightly, as if he had found the love of his life. LIUSEN had no doubt that, if he was not here, Filch would kiss this magic gun hard. He then explained how to load and change the gun, as well as some precautions. Filch wrote them down one by one, then thanked him profusely and left. He wanted to find Peeves to show this new magical prop. LIUSEN looked at his back and smiled with satisfaction. From then on, Filch became more and more high-spirited, and from time to time he could be seen wandering around Hogwarts with a magic spray gun in his hand. But some muggle-born little wizards would be confused. It has a blue handle, a white shaft, and a green head. It's even made of plastic. Why is Filch holding a toy gun? Chapter 38. Professor, this is my sincerity. In the morning, in the common room, Harry looked in the mirror and asked LIUSEN in confusion, "Why did you turn my hair red?" LIUSEN put away his smirk and tried to sound serious as he said, "This is to test the effect of the one-button hairstyling device." Ron said curiously, "Harry, your hair is redder than mine." He excitedly hugged Harry and put his head against his. He asked, LIUSEN, "Look at this. If you don't know, you would think there is another Weasley in Hogwarts." When Harry heard this, he imagined that it would be nice if he had 6 brothers and a sister, seeing that the 2 of them were having fun. LIUSEN quietly put away the wooden comb-shaped one-button hairdresser. But at this moment, 2 hands suddenly appeared on his shoulders. "Wow, it looks like we have a new family member." Fred joked, "That's right. And maybe there's one more." George followed up, "Come on, LIUSEN. Join the Weasley family." The twins said in unison. They snatched the hairdressing tool that LIUSEN had not had time to hide, turned the knob to red with ease, and then combed LIUSEN's hair twice. So LIUSEN's black hair turned into fiery red in an instant. As for why they were so familiar with the operation, it was because LIUSEN and the twins made it together. Fred said with great interest, "Not bad. The effect is better than expected." George high-fived him and said, "It looks like the experiment was a success." LIUSEN touched his hair helplessly. Now the whole common room was occupied by red-haired people. But it was good this way. Harry would not feel special. He said to the twins, "The hair dyeing function of the hairstyling device is quite effective. I will find a girl to try the hair straightening function later. If it works, I will buy this design. From now on, every time a one-button hairstyling device is sold, you two will get a share." The two looked at each other, turned their heads, and whispered for a while, and then one of the twins discussed with LIUSEN, "LIUSEN, can we come up with a name for that hairdressing device? For example, Weasley Magic Wooden Comb." LIUSEN's eyes widened immediately and said, "I didn't expect you guys to have such a business mind." Then he thought, the twins had put a lot of effort into making the magic sprayer for him 2 days ago, and this time the Weasley Magic Wooden Comb was also well made. Lupin is busy with work, and the twins will be the best helpers to realize his creative ideas in the future. So LIUSEN pretended to be embarrassed and said, "Okay, the naming rights are given to you, but the exclusive sales rights and patent usage rights belong to the Galaxy Group. The commissions are distributed according to levels. The more you sell, the more you get. How do you think?" The Two of them immediately nodded happily in agreement and gave Liusen a big hug. At this time, Hermione came to the common room from the girls' dormitory and Ron immediately said, "Hermione, look at us. Any changes?" He shook his head to remind her, since the troll incident, Hermione has been much nicer to Ron and Harry, and occasionally even lends them her homework to copy. Harry and his friend privately told Liusen more than once that Hermione was much cuter than before. But Liusen didn't notice it, because the elementary school bully didn't change much towards him. Hermione cooperated and showed a surprised expression. "Wow. Your hair. Why is it all red? Cool. Wow." The three little ones were happily chatting. Liusen adjusted the Weasley magic hairstylist to the straightening position and quietly handed it to Harry. Harry understood what Liusen meant by looking at him and attacked quickly when Hermione wasn't paying attention. "Harry, what are you doing?" But after she finished speaking, Hermione touched her hair and found that her messy hair, which she usually never bothered to take care of, had instantly turned into smooth and flowing straight hair. Harry said quickly, "So beautiful." Hermione, "Straight hair suits you better." Ron also came back to his senses from his admiration and said, "Yes, very beautiful. Like a princess." Hermione's cheeks instantly turned red and she said embarrassedly, "Really? How can it be so beautiful?" Suddenly, a 2 stars supporting the moon drama caused by straight hair was staged in front of the Weasley twins, and Liusen. Fred whispered in a stern voice, "It's great to be young." George went on to say, "Each generation is stronger than the last. We wouldn't have been so attentive when we were this age." Liu-Sen suddenly ate a handful of compound dog food and said dryly, "The effect is good. I'm going to class first." This class was potions class, and Liusen was the first to arrive in class and wait for class to start. It was not until Snape stood on the podium that Harry and the other two hurried into the classroom. Just as the bell rang. Normally, Snape would have deducted a few points from a few people, but he immediately noticed the difference in Harry. Snape's heart seemed to be hit by a hammer. The fiery red hair and emerald green eyes seemed so distant yet so familiar. Now they were back to him again. He was stunned for a moment, and Harry and the other two had already returned to their seats. Snape lingered around Harry intentionally or unintentionally throughout the class, and taught Harry the skills of mixing potions in detail. All the little wizards in the class were used to it. After class, Harry excitedly discussed what he had learned from the class. Potions class had now become Harry's favorite class, and he could even discuss potion formulas with Hermione. Liusen suddenly stopped and said to the others, "I left something behind. You go first." Harry and Ron were busy chatting with Hermione, but they still symbolically acknowledged it. Liusen didn't care at all. The three little ones had complicated emotions and he didn't want to get involved. When I pushed open the classroom door, Snape was still in a daze at the podium. When he saw Liusen come in, he immediately returned to his cold and serious look. Liusen smiled and said, "Professor, have you received the sincerity I prepared? Are you satisfied?" Snape showed a shocked expression, but quickly calmed down and said in an imperceptible voice. Then he tapped his fingers rhythmically on the desk and said condescendingly, "Don't you just want me to help you make the medicine? Bring me the recipe. I want to see how complicated a potion that takes 8 months to make is. This is for academic research, not for the damn Lupin." Liu-Sen thought, "You are still stubborn, right? But, so," he said in surprise, "that's great, Professor. When the potion comes out, your name will be written together with Damocles' Bellby in the list of great potion makers in modern times. You will save countless broken families and suffering people." Having said that, Liu-Sen deliberately paused and stared at Snape with unchanging joy in his eyes. When the other party became impatient, he continued, "Oh, I almost forgot. The materials for brewing the potion and your hard work fee are all provided by the Galaxy Group. If there are no other questions, it's settled." Liu-Sen blinked and didn't get to the point. He took a tentative step back and pretended to leave. Snape finally couldn't hold it anymore. He looked at the ceiling and pretended to be calm and said, "Let him keep it up." Liu-Sen had a sly smile on his face, but he said, "Keep what? Professor, I don't understand." Snape's face suddenly darkened, and he stopped pretending. Mr. Liu, we don't need to play dumb. I don't know whether you heard it from Lupin or from some other channel, and I don't want to get into the details. We are all smart people, so let's not beat around the bush. Let the child remain the way he is today. This is my condition. And, what else do you know? I mean your prophecy. Liu Sen blinked his eyes. He heard Harry say that Snape was injured in the leg on Halloween. The three little ones guessed that Snape went to steal something hidden under the three-headed dog point before. He tricked Snape into believing that he had a bloody disaster, and it was related to hell, the three-headed dog of hell. Snape probably asked this because he was beginning to believe in the accuracy of his prophecy, so he thought for a moment and said, okay, let's consider it as a benefit of our cooperation. Let me see. Well, the person you care about most is about to be in danger of death, and you will be the key to saving him. Snape suddenly became excited. He limped but quickly rushed to Liu, grabbed his collar and said, you mean, Potter? Tell me the details quickly. I know you can do it. Liu was startled. It seemed like he was overexcited. He patted Snape's arm gently, signaling him to calm down. Snape also realized that his emotions were out of control. He let go of Liu, but still stared at him without blinking. Liu thought about it and decided to round up the situation. Chinese wizards often say, man can conquer nature. It means that different choices people make can change their predetermined fate, so the picture seen in the prophecy will change. As long as we are adequately prepared, we can better deal with the fate that may come and tilt the outcome in a positive direction. The universe is pluralistic, the timeline is changeable, and the only thing that remains unchanged is human beings. Therefore, prophecies are just for reference. Snape was still not satisfied with this explanation. It's too vague. Tell me exactly when. What will happen? Liu had no choice but to assure, don't worry, Professor. I can't just sit there and watch. I will make preparations and minimize the danger. I can also tell you that Harry will be safe this year. After comforting Snape, Liu took out the prescriptions and herbs used in the experiment and explained several auxiliary materials that Damocles Belby needed to verify, as well as the task of boiling medicine that Snape needed to carry out simultaneously at school. Suddenly Snape thought of something and said with a sinister smile, by the way, have your werewolf lackey send me 20 ounces of blood as soon as possible. I need it for the experiment. Liu isn't that a bit much? 20 ounces equals 567 grams, more than a pound. Once Snape entered the realm of potions, he became extremely serious. He was too lazy to listen to Liu's explanation. He stared at the prescription with his eyes and waved his hand without raising his head. You can go. Liu was about to leave when he suddenly noticed Snape's injured leg and his heart moved. He blinked and asked, Professor, is your leg okay? I have a new healing technique I learned. Would you like to try it? Chapter 39. Healer and Worker. Snape. On Halloween night, everyone went to find the troll, but Snape was quick to sense something was wrong and ran to protect the Philosopher's Stone. As a result, he was bitten by Fluffy. This just confirmed Liu's prediction. Thinking of this, Snape's face suddenly became unhappy, and he said coldly, it's none of your business, but Liu laughed. I guess the saliva of the three-headed dog has the magical power to prevent blood clotting. Your wound is not healed yet, right? Snape responded with a greasy slap on the back of his head and a snort. How about letting me try? Liu thought for a while and said he had learned a few tricks from Mrs. Beans from the school hospital before and combined with the Chinese healing spells to conceive magic. He was just looking for a guinea pig. Snape turned his head, looked him up and down, and said disdainfully, just you? You know how to heal. Liu has become somewhat accustomed to the other party's way of communicating. He doesn't seem to be able to chat calmly, and every sentence he says is full of sarcasm. Liu even secretly wondered if James and the others bullied Snape because of his vicious tongue. Although school violence is wrong, Snape's bad temper really deserves a beating. Liu originally wanted to use the spare wand, but seeing Snape's attitude, he decided to give him some extra spice. So the sealed thick black rolling pin crossed out, and the sealed thunder wand reappeared in the world. Snape sat on the chair reluctantly and lifted the hem of his robe. The gauze inside was soaked with blood. After Liusen used the spare wand to perform a cleansing spell, he solemnly picked up the thunderbolt wand and kindly, secretly, reminded, "Professor, the next one is my original healing spell. It may be a little painful, please bear with it." Before Snape could think of some sarcastic words to sneer at him, Liusen instantly showed a solemn, eerie smile and shouted, "Fluorescent flash, Snape." "What?" Liusen. I saw the tip of the wand light up, and a soft white light like a veil came out of it. This tangible light lightly covered the wound, and the place where it was touched instantly made a hissing sound. Upon closer inspection, a faint black gas evaporated from the wound. Snape's expression twisted instantly. He felt like Liusen was burning his legs with a soldering iron, and it was accompanied by a strong electric current. What are you doing?" Snape's hair exploded into a hedgehog under the effect of the electric current. His whole body shook involuntarily, and his facial features changed into different expressions uncontrollably, which looked very funny. Liusen nodded with satisfaction, and adjusted the frequency of his magic power slightly. After a few breaths, the burning and electric sensations completely disappeared, replaced by a cool, comfortable feeling, and a little itchy. Snape's eyes flashed with disbelief, and then he arrogantly put on a critical look and said, "What kind of magic is this? What evil book did you learn it from?" While Liusen was using illumination magic to treat, he made up a story. As we all know, illumination magic has been used for healing since ancient times. This makes sense, right? I saw in a book called Journey to Middle-earth that there was an old wizard who looked very much like Dumbledore. When he encountered a monster, he used a sword in one hand and illumination magic in the other, and beat the monster until it cried for its parents. Well, it seems to be done in just half a minute. Liusen not only cleared the toxins and magic left by the three-headed dog, but also completed the treatment of the wound. Snape's calf was almost bitten through by the three-headed dog, but now it has not only fully recovered, but there is no scar at all. A new form of illumination healing light. The experiment was a success, but when Liusen looked up and saw Snape enjoying himself, he immediately said, "Professor, the treatment is basically complete, but there is still one last step." Seeing that the wound on his leg was really healed, Snape did not resist. Liusen instructed Snape to straighten and relax his legs, with his feet off the ground, and his thighs and calves at 90 degrees. Then he used the thunder wand as a hammer and hit the opponent's knee with a bang. Snape grimaced in pain and his calf kicked forward uncontrollably. Liusen suppressed his laughter and said, "This is called the knee-jerk reflex. It means your leg is completely healed. Then I won't bother you while you boil the medicine." Snape's face suddenly turned pale. He realized that the last move was completely unnecessary. Liusen quickly turned around and left. He gently closed the door and said with a sly smile in his heart, "You son dear, you still have to make some medicine for me. Haha. The Wolfsbane potion is just around the corner." Within a few days, Snape had a breakthrough. Liusen pushed open the door of Snape's private lounge. The space inside was not very large. In the middle was a test table filled with various medicine-making instruments, and the surrounding walls were nailed with wooden shelves. There were all kinds of large and small bottles on it, all of which were medicinal materials collected by Snape. Many unknown animal tissues soaked in potions were still slowly wriggling. The scene was quite terrifying and dark. Snape, who was concentrating on refining the medicine, was concentrating on dropping bright red liquid into a pot of boiling liquid. With each drop, the color of the liquid in the pot would change dramatically, and it would emit a strange smell that would make people doubt their lives. Liusen quietly drew a breath holding chum on his hand, and gently stuck it on his body. Suddenly, Liusen's nose was saved. With this charm, he no longer needed to breathe. After waiting quietly for about 20 minutes, Snape looked up. He took out a note from a pile of parchment with densely written small words and handed it to Liusen. "These are the auxiliary ingredients I have ruled out. There is no need to waste time experimenting with them. Also, the cooking process of Damocles takes a lot of detours. Give me his contact address. I want to communicate with him directly. Snape lifted his hair that was blocking his view and looked up at Liu-Sen and said indifferently. Liu-Sen was shocked by Snape's research speed, but he believed in Snape's judgment that he was definitely the best in the world in terms of potions. Soon Snape got in touch with Damocles Belby, and it was a very direct way of contact, a phone call. The two sides communicated directly through the Galaxy Group's communicator. It was the first time that Liu-Sen heard Damocles Belby's voice. The other party seemed a bit arrogant, but when Professor Snape pointed out the mistakes in the prescription directly, the other party quickly became humble. The conversation between the two potion masters was very clear when each word was separated, but when they were put together, Liu-Sen couldn't understand a word. However, the distribution of Wolfsbane potion was quickly replanned, and after the two agreed on their respective experimental goals, they began to conduct experiments simultaneously. Through Snape's improvement, the brewing time was shortened from 8 months to 5 months. But Liu-Sen still felt it was too slow. Fortunately, Huazia's uncle sent a package and a reply letter, which brought Liu-Sen a surprise. The letter responded to Liu-Sen's questions one by one, starting with the communicator. China is different from the closed and conservative West. Ordinary people in China have been using technological products in depth and are accustomed to using magic to transform and strengthen technological products, commonly known as magic modification. For example, the Motorola mobile phone that was given to Liu-Sen in the package. It looked quite primitive, with a small red screen that could only display a few numbers, and its only function was to make and receive calls. It was still 1991, and mobile phones were already very advanced. At the same time, mobile phones were still the dominant force, but it is engraved with special communication talismans, which can realize ultra-long distance calls. At the same time, it has spells such as reinforcement, spirit gathering, waterproofing, and fireproofing. As long as you don't use it to block bullets, this thing will never break. And if it runs out of power, just inject a little magic power. This is a good thing. Liu-Sen rubbed his hands and said he would open it and take a look when he has time. After Liu-Sen tested it, he was able to call home normally, even if he was far away from Hogwarts Castle. For example, Hagrid's home had a good signal. Unfortunately, cross-border calls are not possible for the time being. China had planned to deploy communication flying swords in low Earth orbit to enhance the communication range. By then, global calls will not be a problem. However, the Ministry of Magic of various countries opposed this plan, fearing that China's move would expose the magic world. As for the problem of offensive spells, Huazia's uncle advised Liu-Sen not to pursue offensive power blindly. Victory is not only about destroying the opponent. Many inconspicuous spells can also play a role in defeating the enemy. You must open your mind and apply what you have learned. He also suggested that Liu-Sen should study the teaching materials of the Chinese cultivation world seriously. After he has done dozens of sets of 3 years of college entrance examination and 5 years of simulation papers, he will almost understand it. Liu-Sen. Vertical bar. The package also contained several specially made talismans for exorcising evil spirits and a fresh keeping container that could automatically return to China. The talisman is used to seal evil spirits and prevent people bitten by zombies from being infected with corpse poison. Dark creatures like werewolves are not seen in China at all, so there is no special research on them. I can only try it first. The container allows Liu-Sen to collect blood samples from werewolves, and after activation it will automatically fly back to China for research by the Central Science and Practice Affairs Administration, CSASA. Liu-Sen thought about it and sent the exorcism talisman and the container to Lupin, asking him to try the effect of the talisman during the next full moon. He also asked him to draw a pound of blood and put it into the container, then find a deserted place to activate it and send it back to China. Lupin, wait a minute. You want to draw blood again? How much? Chapter 40 Banban Health Plan and Sanli Clothing Company. The research and development of Wolfsbane potion is gradually getting on track. By then, Lupin will only need to lock himself in the office on the full moon night to spend it safely. Liu thought about what happened to Lupin in the original plot and suddenly remembered that he had been ignoring a guy who was just eating and waiting to die since the start of the school year. So he went back to the dormitory and asked, "Ron, is your scabbers shedding a bit?" Ron was discussing Quidditch with Harry. He nodded and said, "Yes, it's very old. It's rare to see such a long-lived mouse, so it's normal for it to lose its hair. I've been going to Snape's laboratory quite often recently. There are plenty of potion materials there. Next time I'll ask you if there's any medicine that can keep mice alive." Ron was overjoyed. He usually always looked disdainful at Scabbers, but if Scabbers could become healthier, he would be very happy. So Ron took out his fat rat from his pile of clothes, touched it a few times, and handed it to Liu, saying, "Thank you, buddy. Great. I've always wanted to change a pet, but if Banban can stay healthy, I don't mind keeping it for a few more years." Liu took Banban and looked at him carefully. This fence sitter who killed Harry's parents and resurrected Voldemort has been lurking in the Weasley family for many years. He has not been exposed yet, thinking that the mouse in his hand was a bald middle-aged man with a wretched appearance. Liu hurriedly returned it. "I'll bring the medicine back in a few days and give it a closed-door treatment, but after that." Liu secretly contacted Lupin on the communicator and gave him a shopping list. Of course, he said that Snape needed it for a search. "Lupin, are you sure?" The next day, Lupin sent someone to collect the items and sent them to Liu Senator. Some of them were pet potions that were already in Diagon Alley, and some were unique to the Muggle world. For example, there is a small blue pill that is very popular in Muggle pharmacies and health food stores. Liu showed a kind, evil smile, took out 3 pills and ground them into powder, mixed the powder into the pet nutritional potion, and fed it to the naive, hateful, fat rat Banban. Ron looked puzzled and asked, "What kind of supplement is this? Why is there blue powder?" Liu took out his prepared speech and said seriously, "I guess Banban can live so long because he has the blood of a rare magical animal. But he is too lazy, which results in his blood not being activated. I use nutritional potions to replenish its body, and vitality potions to stimulate its instincts. This will restore it to its youthful state. Combined with exercise and rest, this little mouse will be healthy." Ron immediately felt that it made sense, so he entrusted Scabbers to the other party. Liu thoughtfully arranged a new luxurious mouse house for Banban. It was made of stainless steel. There was a sturdy running wheel inside for him to exercise. It also had a comfortable bed, a water bowl, a food bowl, a toilet, a mirror, a bathtub and other living utensils. Liu also carefully prepared a playmate for it, a pink toy mouse made of stainless steel. It is strong and wear resistant. After locking Banban in the luxurious mouse house, Liu covered the outside with a gauze curtain and cast a silencing spell. It's reasonable to rest every day. Liu secretly observes Banban's condition and arranges its diet and increases or decreases its supplements appropriately. Hygiene is also very important, so clean it up every morning and evening. On the first day, the mouse was very excited. The running wheel was smoking. In addition, it loved the toy mouse. The next day, the mouse was a little tired, so it was okay to increase the dosage. The toy mouse was a little worn out. On the third day, the mouse was a little thin. From now on, give it 2 doses of health, sterilization, medicine every day. At the same time, improve its food. Add a little bit of pet magic supplement, and add a little bit of hair growth potion. On the 5th day, the mouse was in good health and plump. The hair growth potion also worked, and now he was as furry as a rabbit. On the 6th day, the mouse became clean and occasionally looked in the mirror. I gave the mouse 5 tablets of blue vitality potion, but there was no reaction and the mouse slept for a day. On the 7th day, the mouse's appetite increased, and he gained some weight. Just like the previous days, he took another 5 pills, but the mouse showed no reaction. He slept all day. On the 8th day, life was very regular, eating, sleeping, licking fur, looking in the mirror, eating, and sleeping. Liu closed his scientific research notebook with satisfaction. It seemed that Bangbun's health plan was a complete success. The mouse, which was back in Ron's hands, became very afraid of Liu-Sen, but Ron was very satisfied. This fat mouse finally had enough hair, but it seemed more wilted. Its eyes became softer. Was it an illusion? After entering November, the temperature has unknowingly dropped below zero, but the group's construction business has not stopped. Lupin thought of a good idea. He would set up a huge translucent barrier at the construction site in advance, and use a wonderful magic to keep the temperature inside at the state of early autumn, so that the concrete would not be difficult to form due to the low temperature. And the foundation would not collapse and deform. When the flowers bloomed in the spring of the following year, Liu-Sen thought this method was very good and could be called the magic greenhouse construction technique. As the president and chairman of the group, Liu-Sen waved his hand and rewarded Comrade Lupin with double salary this month. It's a big company. Double salary is a basic operation. The clothing business is also doing well. After Mrs. Weasley fully adapted to her new job, she continued to improve the quality and aesthetics of clothing, and sales have repeatedly broken new records. At the beginning, Mrs. Weasley was quite conservative about style. Like people from traditional wizard families, she could only design old sweaters and unchanging wizard robes. But since Liu-Sen ordered a batch of Muggle fashion magazines for her, Mrs. Weasley has found the door to a new world. After that, every outfit she designed has the vigor of the new era, while retaining the noble mystery of the wizarding world. Liu-Sen was shocked after reading it, and decided to set up a formal clothing branch and named it Sanli Clothing Co. Limited. Sanli is taken from the names of 3 great mothers, one of whom is a woman who raised 7 children, and is also a successful example of a home which starting a new business. Mrs. Molly Weasley, one is a legendary woman who used her life and love to protect her young son and sacrificed herself to destroy the Dark Lord. Lily Potter, that is, Harry's mother, and there is Liu-Sen's mother, Julie, who is the company's major shareholder behind the scenes. When Liu-Sen expressed this idea, his 2 friends were very excited. A clothing company named after the mothers of 3 people. Liu-Sen was worried that Harry would object. After all, this would remind people of the tragedy, and would also deeply open the scars in Harry's heart, and the idea that maternal love destroyed the Dark Lord would also deprive Harry of his savior halo. But Harry bravely agreed. He sincerely hopes that people will know how much his mother loves him, and he is very grateful to Liu-Sen for commemorating his mother in this way. As for fame, little Harry said he doesn't care at all, so Liu-Sen gave each of them 5% of the shares as the naming rights. Ron received it on behalf of his family, and Harry received it for himself. Neither of them was willing to accept such a gift of wealth, but Liu-Sen had a high martial arts value and forcibly dragged their fingerprints onto the contract. Liu-Sen comforted them and said, "It's okay. I can find a rich man to invest in the company in a few minutes. I'll let him pay for all your shares." Seeing the 2 men's looks of disbelief, Liu-Sen took the contract and went out. Not long after, he sold 5% of the shares at 3 times the market valuation. The mysterious investor is of course a certain Lily lover who likes to make medicine. But Liu-Sen will not reveal this to the 2 of them. Liu-Sen submitted the story behind the Sanli brand to many newspapers. Wizards have always been extremely concerned about Harry and the Dark Lord, and such news quickly made the front page headlines of major newspapers. Mrs. Weasley and Harry's mother once became a hot topic of discussion among people after dinner. Harry's popularity did not decrease at all, but instead skyrocketed. In the past, the little fans would just greet Harry excitedly, but now they would sincerely praise him by saying, "Harry, you have a great mother." Quite a few people would also give him a big hug and a few words of encouragement, including many of his senior schoolmates. This made Harry feel dizzy every day. Ron was quite envious of this, but Hermione always had complicated feelings like a cat protecting its food. Soon, the 3 L's on the galactic emblem appeared more and more on young wizards. Another thing that all the little wizards talked about was a new thing Liu-Sen created, the Hogwarts Forum. Chapter 41 Campus Forum and Artificial Intelligence. Liu-Sen wanted to design a public platform that could quickly publish messages and get real-time feedback. This type of internet interaction had already been born in the Muggle world, but it was still a blue ocean in the wizarding world. Wizards have not yet realized how powerful such an instant feedback system and interactive experience are. As an initial trial product, LIUSEN's first thought was to set up a forum, but the wizarding world does not have the internet or computers that can process massive amounts of information. So this problem has yet to be solved. However, basic functions can still be realized, such as voting, liking, and leaving messages. Soon the first forum board was erected in front of the auditorium. It was a blackboard-sized device whose content was synchronized in real time with 4 smaller forum boards located in the common lounges of the 4 colleges. The little wizards are full of enthusiasm for such new things, and the forum board is always crowded with people every day. In addition to R&D personnel LIUSEN, the Weasley twins and Cedric, Percy has also been appointed as a back-end administrator and is responsible for reviewing the submissions and information releases of the young wizards. Ron initially complained about his annoying brother being the administrator, but after a few days he found that Percy had to review a large number of articles every day, stare at the forum board for a long time, and delete naughty and inappropriate messages from time to time, so Ron stopped saying anything. This job is indeed suitable for Percy. Although he is always arrogant when he is a supervisor, he is very meticulous when handling paperwork. Seeing that Percy was working so hard, LIUSEN asked the twin brothers to take charge of the purchasing section, record the purchase messages under the Sally clothing advertising page, and confirm the orders with the little wizards. When Dumbledore approved LIUSEN to establish the Hogwarts Forum, he never thought that it would be so effective. Not only is the news released accurately and efficiently, but the young wizards can also give direct feedback on the content. Now you don't need to post notices about major or minor events at Hogwarts, gossip, lost and found notices, or even course changes. Just notify the forum administrator. As the volume of business increased, the responsible Percy was the first to be overwhelmed. There were more and more people making troublesome comments, and he couldn't delete them all. In addition, the information that teachers and students wanted to post also had to be reviewed and uploaded. The workload was too heavy. LIUSEN was a little confused. He didn't expect these situations to happen. Fortunately, he has a foreign aide who is very good at this. After listening to all the questions carefully, Lupin couldn't help but recall the good times when he and several friends developed the Marauders map together during his school days. Lupin, on the other side of the communicator, thought for a moment and said, "Do you know what function the forum lacks now? Real name system. As long as the name of every little wizard who leaves a message is displayed, no one will dare to make trouble. Your workload will be greatly reduced." LIUSEN immediately said happily, "Remus, I knew you would find a way." Under the guidance of the veteran Lupin, LIUSEN excitedly wrote down a lot of related magic and production secrets. But what he didn't know was that Lupin sighed repeatedly after putting down the communicator. His best friends James Potter and Sirius Black were the main forces in the development of the Marauders map back then, but now he was the only one left in the group of 4. Soon, the Hogwarts Forum 2.0 was upgraded. LIUSEN was careful and hid the real name function first, and then sent a small forum board to Dumbledore and the deans of the 4 colleges. When the naughty little wizards were flooding the screen with random messages, LIUSEN quietly turned on the real name function. Suddenly, several keyboard warriors in the magic world were caught, and they were given a love education by teachers and classmates. After the real name system was introduced, the campus forum became much clearer, and even the Weasley twins' work became much easier. However, this function is really terrible compared with the internet of later Muggles. LIUSEN had to contact Lupin again to see if he could create a magic version of artificial intelligence on it to help the administrators maintain order and achieve more convenient operations. However, LIUSEN did not get the answer this time. The in-depth research and development of the Marauders map was led by Sirius and James. Lupin did not know how to make the magical creation more spiritual. He could extract memories, but he did not quite understand how to inject them into the forum board point. So LIUSEN decided to ask Dumbledore if there was any way to make it happen. LIUSEN came to the principal's office to consult about how to implement the magic version of artificial intelligence. Dumbledore's answer was very magical. Just inject thought. But Comrade Leo Deng made it sound like he could do it with his hands, but Liu was confused. To extract a person's thoughts and give them to a dead object, he must at least be able to perform legilimency and memory extraction, right? But he didn't. Liu suggested, why don't you put your thoughts into the forum? You can be the forum's intelligent administrator. Dumbledore shook his head and said, the forum is a new thing created by you, the new generation. If an old man like me manages it, the forum will lose its current vitality. Liu Sen thought about it and realized that this was indeed the truth, so he had to give up. But he was happy again, because this way he would have a legitimate excuse to learn legilimency and occlumency, right? Unfortunately, Dumbledore felt that Liu Sen was too young, and that he would be allowed to learn magic like legilimency only when he was in his senior year. Liu Sen said helplessly, how can I add the automatic management function to the forum if I don't know legilimency and a series of magic? Dumbledore looked at Liu Sen with deep eyes and said, simply extracting thoughts can indeed quickly copy part of one's own personality, but this behavior is very dangerous, especially when it is placed where everyone can access it. Liu Sen frowned and said, you mean, this personality and the memories in it can be easily read and used by others? Dumbledore nodded and continued, even tampering. Since the extracted personality and memory are incomplete, they can be easily used by people with bad intentions. I know that the Hogwarts forum is just the beginning, and I have noticed the huge potential of this thing. So Liu Sen, you have to give it thoughts in a more secure way. Liu Sen was puzzled. Besides extracting memories and instilling them into objects, what other methods are there? Dumbledore took off his half-moon glasses, turned around and looked at the bookcase behind him. You have so many wonderful ideas. I guess many of them come from muggles, right? If it were muggles, what would they do? Liu Sen frowned and said, they will develop a program and then teach from 1 + 1 = a number and then continue to increase the difficulty. At this point, Liu Sen's eyes suddenly lit up. Dumbledore smiled and said, see, many times people already have the answer in their hearts. But do muggles really have such a thing? Liu Sen nodded and said, yes, artificial intelligence. But it will take many years for it to come out. Liu Sen looked at Dumbledore guiltily. He accidentally let the cat out of the bag. Dumbledore opened a can of candy, as if nothing had happened, handed it to Liu Sen and said, just made by Honeydukes. It tastes great. Seeing that there was no abnormality on the other party's face, Liu Sen felt relieved. He ate a piece and found it too sweet, but Dumbledore looked very happy. At this time, the principal asked calmly, by the way, when did you discover your ability to predict the future? Liu Sen, ahem. Here comes the fatal question. How should I answer it? Waiting online. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42. A Wizard's Journey should be to the Sea of Stars. Liu Sen was about to swallow the candy when he was frightened by Dumbledore's question and coughed twice. I thought to myself, oh no, I asked a fatal question. However, Dumbledore was not in a hurry and comforted them. Many young wizards with extraordinary talents try their best to hide themselves, but don't worry, this is Hogwarts, a place where young wizards can speak freely. No one will hurt you. Liu Sen retorted in his heart, what's wrong with the giant monster? What's wrong with Quirrell? But after thinking about it, I made up a story. When I was a kid, I would occasionally have a hunch about which stocks would make money, but it wasn't always accurate. Dumbledore encouraged, that's already amazing. In fact, the prophecies left by famous prophets cannot always come true. I happen to be very interested in prophecies. Do you have any interesting prophecies to share recently? As if knowing that Liu Sen was unwilling to reveal it, he added, we can add some fun. If you successfully predict something, I can prepare a reward for you, based on the importance of the event. How about that? Liu Sen's eyes lit up and he said, "Then can you untie the wand?" Dumbledore was silent for a moment. "Can you change it, TSK? Then it would be okay to learn telepathy, right?" Liu said unhappily. Dumbledore rubbed his forehead. Another one, Liu said impatiently. "This won't work, and that won't work either. Forget it, I'm going back to sleep. Bye." After walking a few steps, Liu slowed down and waited for Dumbledore to call him. He walked a few more steps slowly, but still no movement. Liu tried again. "I'm really leaving." Finally, Liu found out that the old ones are the wisest. Dumbledore didn't even call him back. Liu closed the door, but Liu Deng still didn't say a word. "Hey, my little hot temper." "Then I'll ask again, when?" Liu returned to the office. He told Dumbledore the two prophecies without saying a word. Hagrid was about to get what he wanted most, and that Harry was about to be in danger of his life point. But old Deng blinked and said, "These two don't count. I've already heard them say that." Liu was immediately unhappy, but the principal said that, if he didn't believe it, he could ask the two people and the principal would never lie to students. Haha, okay, you're awesome. Let me think about it. Liu paced back and forth in the principal's office, thinking about what else he could reveal. After a while, Liu said mysteriously, "Your biggest enemy is making a comeback. Soon he will commit an unforgivable sin in the Forbidden Forest." When Dumbledore heard this, his pupils shrank immediately, and his whole body was like a sharp blade out of its sheath. This kind of intimidating power was only displayed for a moment, but it also frightened Liu so much that his hair stood on end. "Anything else?" Dumbledore asked calmly. Liu wanted to fool around a little more, since he knew all the major events in the next few years. But to be safe, he advised, "Principal, the prophecy is just a possibility in the timeline. If you choose to believe it, you can only follow the steps. If you don't believe it, there are countless possibilities." Dumbledore was surprised by Liu's words. He asked, "What about you? Do you believe in your own prophecy?" Liu didn't expect that he would be fooled by himself, but he still replied calmly, "I believe that what I saw is likely to happen, but I believe in myself more. I will be fully prepared to turn the bad results into what I want. If it is destined to be unchangeable, then I will forge my own path." There was a gleam in Dumbledore's eyes, and the wrinkles on his face seemed to have disappeared. After discussing the timeline, the multiverse and the future, Liu was very creative and told the other party about the beauty of the vast universe. He also said that wizards should join hands with muggles to create a technological magic civilization. How boring is the global village? In the future, we should explore the stars and the sea. Dumbledore listened to Liu's story with a smile, his eyes shining from time to time. The next day, Liu, inspired by Dumbledore, told Lupin and his father about his design concept. After some research, the two quickly produced a prototype device, but they were stumped as to what to use as the core. Liu looked through a lot of information but found nothing. Faced with a complete blind spot in knowledge, Liu decided to try his luck with the principal again. Then Dumbledore found a dusty gem from his personal collection and gave it to Liu. From the outside, it looked like a piece of broken glass the size of a quail egg. If Liu hadn't sensed the huge magical energy inside, he would have thought that old Deng was fooling him. Thus, a device that can carry the magic artificial intelligence was born. It looks like a more gorgeous communication badge, but with a pure and transparent gem inlaid on the top. After getting the host, Liu started to worry again. He could use magic to create artificial intelligence, but he couldn't use legilimency. Liu, who had no idea where to start for a few days, simply convinced himself, "Isn't magic just wishes come true? I'll just make up some magic." Liu SEN had already made several spare wands, but faced with such a challenge that required creating something out of nothing, he subconsciously took out the Thunder Wand. Although this rolling pin-shaped wand was sealed by Professor McGonagall, LIUSEN still felt at ease holding such a thick wand when he was thinking about problems or encountering troubles. After thinking carefully about my current idea, to put it simply, I need to make this communicator host generate intelligence. As this thought continued to deepen, and when his belief reached its peak, LIUSEN no longer hesitated, stood up and shouted, "Quickly open your wisdom." LIUSEN's highly concentrated spirit and energy mobilized the magic power in his body to the maximum extent, and a surging force gathered out. But the magic power encountered layers of obstacles when passing through the magic wand. The seal chain composed of ancient magic words inside instantly emitted a red light. The magic power rushed inside, trying to find an outlet for venting. LIUSEN tried his best to squeeze out the magic power in his body and continuously increase the output. Unfortunately, the seal was still better in the end. The magic power LIUSEN poured in was quickly exhausted, but at the last moment, an almost imperceptible faint lightning escaped from the tip of the wand and struck the gem. LIUSEN, who was sweating profusely, sighed. He forgot to change back to the spare wand. He just used his lightning wand. Has this failed? It feels like the magic has broken out of the seal a little bit. After waiting for a moment, LIUSEN tentatively said to the communicator host, "Hello." After waiting for a while, when he thought he had failed, a hi slowly appeared on the communicator. LIUSEN was suddenly extremely excited. He actually succeeded. Although this awareness is still very vague, LIUSEN feels that this is at least a good start. What follows is a long period of teaching, and LIUSEN has no idea about this. How about teaching it the multiplication table first? Chapter 43, Quidditch. The topic that the young wizards talk about the most recently is Quidditch, because the first Quidditch game of this semester is about to come. Harry has been training for a while as the Gryffindor team's secret weapon, and many people say he will lead Gryffindor to achieve good results. However, many people think that Harry is too young as a seeker, and he will fall badly in the game. LIUSEN of course scoffed at the latter statement, not only because he knew that Harry possessed an incredible talent, but also because of the new equipment he designed. Harry patted the clothes that looked like an Air Force flight suit and said, "Do I have to wear this to the competition?" LIUSEN, "It's a bit tight. This is an experimental model. The official version will be adjusted. Look at this smooth dragon skin fabric. It can effectively reduce air resistance. This helmet, it has a built-in bubble head curse effect. No matter how fast you fly, you won't feel short of breath. And more importantly, the safety factor is very high. For example." LIUSEN said this, and suddenly punched out. Immediately, the fist wind hit Harry's chest with a whistling sound, with a puff sound, starting from the place where Harry was hit. The dozen airbags in the interlayer of his clothes wrapped Harry into a big ball at an explosive speed. After the 2-meter diameter ball bounced a few times on the ground, the airbag slowly retracted. Harry, who had regained his freedom, stood up panting. He touched his body and said in shock, "This thing is horrible. It has such a strong force when it's propped up. I can't breathe when I'm stuck in the middle." LIUSEN patted his shoulder indifferently. The helmet has a built-in bubble head curse effect. It can ensure that you can breathe smoothly at any time. Ron always accompanies Harry in Quidditch training, and this time is no exception. He ran up and said, "Cool. This Quidditch uniform is awesome. I bet the quaffle can't even hurt the players, but LIUSEN, your punches are getting stronger and stronger. I could hear the sound of you hitting Harry from a long distance away." While checking Harry's protective suit, LIUSEN said with a smile, "Want to learn? I'll teach you." A few days later on Saturday, Harry's first Quidditch game began. Gryffindor's opponent is the Slytherin team, which has won the championship for several years in a row. The players of the other team are all tall and strong, while the Gryffindor players are much thinner in comparison. The audience seats were located on a high wooden tower, and LIUSEN was pulled over by Ron early in the morning to grab a front row seat. Almost every little wizard around held a small colorful flag with exquisite college emblems printed on it. The flags were cast with exquisite magic, and the mascots of their respective colleges would tumble and jump as the flags were waved. This is all thanks to the Weasley twins, who are always able to keenly spot business opportunities. They sent an application to the company a week before the competition, and prepared flags and banners of all sizes in advance for sale. This made this year's competition full of atmosphere. The little wizards were also excited and enthusiastic. Commentator Lee Jordan loudly explained in the stands, "Ladies and gentlemen, this semester's Hogwarts Quidditch tournament is about to begin. Let us invite the teams to enter." As the players from the red and green teams entered the field, the stands suddenly erupted in cheers and applause. Lee Jordan continued, "By the way, I believe everyone has noticed the Gryffindor team's handsome flight suits, right? This flight suit is not only well made and novel in style, but the outer layer is completely sewn with dragon leather. The most important thing is that protective devices have been added inside." Professor McGonagall interrupted. "Jordan, commentate on the game." Jordan is a good friend of the twins. Even if Professor McGonagall punishes him, he will help his buddies finish the advertisement. He spoke quickly. "Professor, I have just one last word. Gryffindor's competition uniforms are exclusively sponsored by the Galaxy Group." "Professor, don't hit me. Okay, let the game begin." Liu Sen silently gave Lee Kyaden a thumbs up, and then kept taking out peanuts, melon seeds, grilled fish fillets, potato chips, sweet potatoes, and spicy strips from his school bag. Of course, he was not a guest seller, but he was distributing delicious food to a few close friends. "How can you watch a game without snacks?" Hermione, who was worried about Harry's safety, kept looking at Liu Sen with contempt. Ron, on the other hand, was eating happily, and stuffed a spicy strip into Hermione's mouth. Liu Sen was petrified on the spot. "Just borrow flowers to offer to Buddha? Just show off your love in front of me." But, Liu Sen reached back into his backpack, took out a pack of triple BT spicy strips and shook it in front of Ron. When Ron saw the spicy strips in different packaging, his eyes lit up. He thought it was a flavor he had never tasted before, so he grabbed it with a smile. Soon, Liu Sen heard the two people's hissing and laughing exclamations. Liu Sen held back his laughter and calmly took out 2 bottles of Sprite and handed them over, saying caringly, "It's spicy, isn't it? Have a drink." Hermione looked puzzled, but Ron didn't think too much about it and drank it in one gulp. Then the unfortunate child suddenly widened his eyes and fanned his mouth hard with his hands. The thrill of Quidditch is 10 times more than that of football, basketball, and rugby combined. Liu Sen was so jealous. He also wanted to feed the girl. No, he also wanted to fly freely. The scene was extremely intense. At the beginning, Gryffindor's female player Angelina Johnson broke through the siege and won 10 points, but was soon caught up by Slytherin. Lee Jordan is truly a talented person. Not only can he explain the game at a very fast speed, but he also remembers to praise the female players despite Professor McGonagall's murderous gaze. Liu Sen feels that with this kid's eloquence, he will definitely never lack a girlfriend in the future. Harry didn't do anything at the moment. He found the best position in the game, high in the center of the stadium, watching the game. While looking for the golden snitch. The little wizards would occasionally pick up their binoculars to look at the details, wishing they had an extra pair of eyes. The Slytherin players played very brutally, especially their captain Marcus Flint, who deliberately bumped into players many times within the first few minutes of the game and kept hitting the ball at the Gryffindor players. Harry once saw the snitch coming in, but was hit hard by the other party and lost track of him. Liu Sen thought of something and pointed the telescope at the Slytherin audience stand. According to the original plot, Quirrell would start cursing in a while, and Snape would desperately recite the antidote. Hermione mistakenly thought that Snape was the mastermind and used magic to set his robe on fire. She accidentally interrupted Quirrell's spell and saved the tormented Harry. Under the telescope, Quirrell covered his mouth with both hands, staring at the competition field without blinking, looking frightened by the intensity of the competition. Liu Sen nodded and gave Quirrell a score of 7 for his acting skills. Look through the telescope down, then left and right. "I'm taking the test. Where's Snape?" Liu Sen was stunned. "Where's my pharmacist?" Such a big pharmacist. Liusen's mind raced. What should he do? Who would Hermione burn later? If he didn't burn Snape, how could he interrupt Quirrell? Just as he worried about it, Harry's Nimbus 2000 suddenly began to tremble, moving up and down, and left and right uncontrollably. Point the young wizards didn't understand, and thought it was some kind of tactic point, but soon, Harry's movements in the air became more and more dangerous. He seemed to be riding on the back of a mad bull, and was about to be thrown out at any time. Everyone was worried about him, especially Hermione and Ron. Although Liusen didn't think that Harry, who was wearing a special protective suit, could be injured, he didn't want to put his friend in danger. Suddenly, Hermione put down the telescope, and said to the two, "Found it. It's Snape. He's chanting a curse." But why? He usually takes good care of Harry. Liu.Sen. Why is Snape taking the blame again? Chapter 44. The dung bomb smashes his face. Liusen and Ron looked in the direction Hermione pointed, and saw Snape standing in the open space under the opposite stands, muttering to himself, staring at Harry running around in the sky without blinking. Liusen was so angry that he had nowhere to say it, but then he thought, this seems to be his fault. If he didn't pretend to be a prophet, wouldn't Snape just watch the game in the stands? In a short while, the state of the Light Cycle 2000 has changed from a mad bull to a wild horse that has broken free from its reins. It flies all over the field and even does a 360-degree roller coaster spin. Hermione couldn't sit still anymore. She threw Ron down from the snack pile, got up and ran towards the stairs. Of course Liusen couldn't just sit there and wait for death. He had to find the real mastermind to cause trouble, otherwise Hermione's efforts would be in vain. While Ron and Neville were at a loss, Liusen and Hermione had already run to the Gryffindor stand one after the other when going downstairs. Liusen really wanted Hermione to get out of the way, but the stairs were too narrow. It was not until he reached the ground that Liusen seized the opportunity to overtake Hermione. Under Hermione's puzzled gaze, Liusen left a sentence no time to explain, and sped away at the speed of a 100-meter sprinter. By the time Hermione panted and walked around half the field to the bottom of the Slytherin stand, Liusen had already reached the top and quietly went behind Quirrell, who was casting the curse. Hermione lurking behind Snape. Where's Liusen? How come he disappeared when he ran so fast? It's unreliable. I have to do it myself. Harry, you have to hold on. The two of them, one above and one below, started to make trouble at the same time. Liusen subconsciously took out the Thunder Wand at first, but immediately put it back. After all, he couldn't chop people in front of so many people, and according to what Liusen knew, old Dumbledore had already arranged everything, and this was only the first year of the Harry development plan. There are still a lot of challenges waiting for Harry under the three-headed dog. I wonder if Dumbledore will be angry if he cuts Quirrell and Voldemort in half now. Liusen quickly weighed the pros and cons in his mind. Now he could only choose the spare wand, but he felt his pocket and was stunned. It was not in his pocket. He took it out when he was sharing snacks. After searching left and right, all he found were snacks and gold galleons. Finally, he unexpectedly found a super enhanced version of the dung bomb that the twins had recently developed. The two men's biggest hobby is still making prank props. They often give their new products to Liusen for appreciation and try to persuade him to invest in them. Liusen gave a kind smile to the thing in his hand that he usually avoided. Not bad, not bad. I'll use you. He took a few steps back, held his breath, and swung the hidden weapon in his hand out. With a snap, the dung bomb activated in midair, turned into a sticky lump, and hit the back of Quirrell's head. Quirrell, who was concentrating on silently reciting the curse, was not the first to react. A certain unlucky parasite behind his brain was the first to be awakened by the stench from the sky. Hiss. Who hit me? Huh? What's that smell? Ugh. Is it shit? Quirrell. What's going on? Ugh. Quirrell was first startled by the sound of vomiting mixed with anger. Just as he was about to respond to his master in panic, an extremely foul smell came into his nose. The people sitting around him were also dizzy from the sudden stench. Everyone covered their noses and quickly moved away. Quirrell could no longer recite the curse. He looked around in confusion, not knowing where the smell came from. Master? "How are you, Master?" Quirrell called out in his heart, but poor Voldemort had already fainted from the smoke. Feeling the servant's call, he woke up with a start, but before he could say anything, he immediately felt the sticky stuff outside the gauze and the pervasive stench. Ugh, fainted again, Master? Ugh, why don't you speak? Are you okay? Ugh. Quirrell vomited again and again, unable to open his eyes. The stench was so thick that it became substantial. Grey-green mist rose from the back of his head. Quirrell became a walking source of pollution. The next second, he was also happily knocked out by the fumes. Liu Sen had already retreated to the bottom of the tower. Although he dodged quickly, he still imagined the fear of being dominated by the dung bomb. This is simply a biological weapon. As expected, Hermione used fire to burn clothes to distract Snape. Now she had finished setting the fire and was running back. Snape was anxiously reciting a spell to lift the curse on the stage, but unexpectedly his clothes caught fire. While he was jumping up and down to put out the flames, Liu Sen and Hermione reunited. "I did it. Harry's curse is lifted." Hermione panted. The two of them moved away from the stand where Snape and Quirrell were. "The cat behind a wooden shelf." Liu Sen retorted. "I succeeded. Okay. The curse was cast by Pluo. Look." Hermione looked in the direction of Liu Sen's finger. The smoke from the dung bomb was still coming out of the stands, and all the people watching the game had run away. She turned back to Liu Sen fiercely and said, "What? Snape was the one who cast the curse. I saw him casting the curse with my own eyes." While the two were arguing, Harry had regained control of his broomstick and luckily found the trace of the golden snitch. He controlled the Nimbus 2000 to quickly approach the target, and the Slytherin Seeker also noticed Harry's movements and followed. The two pushed and shoved each other, competing fiercely in the air. Finally, when the golden snitch made a sharp turn, the Slytherin Seeker chose to slow down for fear of hitting the ground. Harry was very skilled and courageous. He pulled the broom handle hard and followed the cunning golden snitch closely. All the players stopped their movements and watched Harry's performance without blinking. At the last moment, he stood on the broom and reached out to catch the golden snitch. Amid everyone's exclamations, Harry fell off the broom. What Liu Sen didn't expect was that this scene was slightly different from what he remembered, because Harry fell from a high altitude. At least 20 meters above the ground, Snape's eyes were red with anger. He quickly drew out his wand and fired an instant levitation spell, but the distance was too far. The spell was still halfway through, and Harry was about to hit the ground, but at this moment, the protective suit on Harry's body activated instantly. The moment before landing, he was tightly wrapped by the airbag and became a 360-degree big ball with no dead angles. Duong duong. The Harry ball bounced twice on the ground before Snape's levitation spell hit it. After absorbing the impact of the fall, the protective suit automatically retracted, revealing Harry inside. He was hit by a levitation spell and became light, now flying in the air like a balloon. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but Snape noticed something was wrong. Harry seemed to have a blockage in his throat. He covered his neck with his hands, his face turned purple, and his feet kicked randomly in the air. Snape ran towards Harry quickly, and when he was below Harry, he waved his wand and lifted the levitation spell. Harry fell down and was caught by him. Fresh breath. A spell was cast on Harry, and instantly there was oxygen in his lungs. Harry, who had just taken a breath, still felt uncomfortable. He gathered his strength for a moment, then exerted force, and vomited a small golden ball into his hand. It's the snitch. Harry caught the snitch. Gryffindor gets 150 points. Gryffindor wins. Following Lee Jordan's voice, the whole audience cheered. Harry looked around excitedly. This was the happiest moment of his life. People cheered for him, not because of his scar or his background, but because he won the game. He looked at Snape beside him. It was thanks to Snape that he saved him just now. Otherwise, he would have suffocated to death. Originally, the thief didn't swallow it very far in his throat, but the protective suit opened too quickly, and he was frightened and swallowed another section. "Professor, thank you. You saved me," Harry said sincerely. Snape stared into Harry's green eyes and smiled, which was rare. He didn't care at all that Harry had defeated his house. Instead, he nodded and said, "Well flown, Harry." He reached out to touch Harry's head, but hesitated halfway point. Harry then cooperated by lowering his head and putting his head into the other's hand. Unlike Snape's cold face, Harry felt warmth and security on it. Chapter 45 Ski Bar Wizard. Hogwarts Castle is built between mountains, which makes the winter here even colder. The outside of the castle has long been covered in snow, and the surface of the Black Lake is completely frozen. Liu Sen insisted on doing boxing every day, and his body became stronger in the past few months. But the combination of wearing a sweater inside and a wizard robe outside still made him feel chilly, not to mention the little wizards who never exercised. The corridors were full of students wearing scarves and shivering as they trotted. Even a well-behaved student like Hermione secretly used magic to keep warm. She put a wisp of blue flame in a glass jar, and during breaks she, Harry, and Ron would secretly gather together to use this small fire cup to keep warm. Liu Sen was sour, crossed out, when he saw this scene, and stamped his feet in anger. "You three, please pay attention to the impact. No, I mean, we are wizards. It's just a cold winter, can't we wear a down jacket?" Of course Hermione knew about down jackets, but she felt that it would be a bit out of place if muggle items like down jackets appeared in school, so she chose to deal with it in the traditional wizarding way. Ron asked with a puzzled look on his face, "What is a down jacket? Is it made of bird feathers like a mink coat?" Harry couldn't help laughing. He explained, "Of course not, it's stuffing feathers into the lining of clothes. I have one, although it's a little big. It was given to me by my cousin, but it's really warm." Ron's eyes suddenly lit up. Finally someone understood what it felt like to wear clothes thrown away by his brother. But he immediately thought of a question and frowned. "But how can feathers be used to make clothes? Their stems are so hard. They will poke through the fabric." Liu Sen knew the general method. Dense, down-proof fabrics had long been invented by muggles, but traditional wizards still use traditional materials such as cotton, linen, silk, and camel hair to make clothes, so they did not make down jackets. Realizing that this was a blank market, Liu Sen immediately contacted Mrs. Weasley and introduced the cold-proof artifact, down jackets, thanks to the magic and convenience of magic. Making down jackets, which is complicated for muggles, is no problem for Sanley Clothing Company. Mrs. Weasley used a clever magic, and thousands of goose feathers automatically shook wildly, separating the hard stems from the soft down neatly and efficiently. Then the down formed dandelions in the air and automatically floated into the big bag. The hard stems jumped in a line to the trash can on the other side, and some naughty ones even performed a high diving and 2.5 somersaults in the air. The whole process was relaxing and comfortable, without a speck of dust. What gives muggles even more headaches is the odor problem of duck and goose feathers, which is a matter of cleaning up. So from the time Liu Sen suggested making down jackets to the time Mrs. Weasley sent the samples, it only took one day, and that included the time it took for the owl to go back and forth. Liu Sen patted his warm and fluffy down jacket and couldn't help but sigh. Mrs. Weasley is so efficient. And magic is so convenient. Subsequently, Sandler's down jackets began to be fully launched on the market, with the dual offensive of newspaper publicity and word of mouth from young wizards at Hogwarts. Many wizards who were willing to accept new things began to rush to buy this warm and lightweight cold-proof artifact. However, some conservative old-fashioned people still insisted on wrapping themselves up in 3 layers of clothing. This is also reflected in the academy. For example, very few Slytherin wizards buy down jackets. Malfoy also took the lead in resisting down jackets, saying that duck and goose feathers were garbage and not even used by servants. When students from other colleges put on down jackets and played happily outdoors, Malfoy and his friends were still shivering in the cold wind. Ironically, when he was still stubborn, his mother Narcissa sent him a thickened wizard robe. He was about to show off that the traditional wizard robe was also warm, but he found a 3L trademark hidden inside. Sandler's latest product, retro down wizard robe. Malfoy, should I wear it? Or should I wear it? Liu Sen was the first to show off his down jacket. He found that the Black Lake had been frozen as hard as a rock. He could have fun on the White Lake, so he suggested, "Harry, Ron, Hermione, let's go ice skating." Harry, who was obsessed with Quidditch, said without hesitation, "How can ice skating be as fun as flying a broom?" Liu SEN. What's so fun about flying broomsticks? In winter, we should play ice sports. LIU. SEN also wanted to ride a flying broom, but his talent was not in flying broom at all. Ron. But how can ice skating be as exciting as flying on a broomstick? Harry. Also echoed, yeah, the flying broom is faster. LIU. SEN was immediately angry, so he said, haha. Let me show you how wizards skate. LIU. SEN didn't know how wizards skated, so he went to Hagrid's basement angrily and built a sled with wood. Then he stuffed a flying broom into it with resentment. He used the broom as a power to pull the sled. LIUSEN was tinkering with it while thinking, is the flying broom hard to control? No problem. I can use it as an engine. Just focus on the output. Thus, the magic sled with a steering wheel, accelerator, brake and reverse gear was born. Maybe it was because he felt safer without taking off, but LIUSEN drove the sled very well. He had a lot of fun with drifting, 360-degree turns, and high-speed sprints. The first ones to be attracted were of course the restless Weasley twins, who strongly suggested changing the sled into a double one, so LIUSEN helped them build a two-person sled. The chase between the two sides attracted more people's attention. Even little wizards like Harry and Ron, who have a special liking for flying, couldn't help but join in. Of course, 2 sleighs were not enough, but there were not so many idle broomsticks to transform. After Cedric joined, the others decided to redesign the sleigh and apply the magic used to make magic carpets to it, so that the sleigh would be free from the restrictions of the broomsticks. After consulting his uncle, LIUSEN also contributed some object controlling skills from the Chinese textbooks, and they quickly created an upgraded version, making racing even more fun. The play of several people attracted the attention of more little wizards, and thus a grand ice racing sport began. As senior wizards join in, the traditional sleds are no longer enough for them. Fire-breathing flying cars, 16-legged all-terrain vehicles, and ice cars suspended on the ice spewing cold air have all appeared. In the end, even Professor McGonagall and several other teachers were attracted and built a very exquisite sled for the little wizards to play on. This unique ice sport not only allowed the little wizards to indulge in their addiction to acceleration, but also allowed them to show their passion for magical transformation. So LIUSEN and Principal Dumbledore applied for the Galaxy Group to fully fund and host an official Hogwarts bobsleigh race. There is no age limit for contestants, and a team can consist of a maximum of 5 people. Without the aid of ready-made power sources such as broomsticks, the participating teams can only use simple materials such as iron, wood, ice and ropes to make sleds on site. As long as the sled you make doesn't fly, any other way of driving is fine. During the competition, each team sends 2 representatives to drive the sled to complete the race. The Galaxy Group will carefully arrange the venue, and Lupin will lead the team personally. Various thrilling levels and traps will be added to the track. The competition will be held at the end of December, before Christmas. This unprecedented event not only made the Young Wizards feel novel, but also received a warm response after it was published in the newspaper. When there was still some time before the competition, all the hotels in Hogsmeade Village were booked. After seeing the promotion in the newspaper, many wizards planned to go to the scene in person to watch this new ice sport in Hogwarts. On a Saturday in mid-December, LIUSEN was adjusting the sled by the Black Lake when he saw an unexpected group of people. Dad, Mom, Uncle, why are you here? LIUSEN asked in surprise. How is it? Did you miss me? Julie said while rubbing LIUSEN's hair hard. LIUSEN dodged calmly, took out the Weasley magic hairdresser from his pocket, skillfully adjusted it to the straightening mode, and after a few strokes he regained his spirits. He complained, I really wanted to do that. Seeing his mother's eyes narrowed, he quickly changed his words and said, I want to do it even more now. Liu, Guozhang and Belle smiled at each other. This mother and son are always so happy. You here to watch the game? LIUSEN guessed. I guess so. After all, it's a big investment. I came to check out the situation, and by the way, see you. Belle joked while comparing LIUSEN's height. Have you grown taller? LIUSEN's father had noticed it a long time ago, and he said happily, son, we are relieved to see you grow up healthily. You don't even know how many times your mother talks about you every day. As soon as Liu Guozhang finished speaking, he was frightened by Julie's cough and made a face point. They chatted for a while. Then Bell looked at his watch and said, "It's almost time. We have to go to Hogsmeade. See you later." Sen couldn't help but wonder, where are you going? Hogsmeade shouldn't be as lively as Diagon Alley, right? Only Honeydukes is quite famous. What else? The three of them looked at each other, and after a brief exchange of glances, Liu Guozhang said with a strange expression, "I told you before that the people in Diagon Alley don't dare to sell real estate to us anymore. The prices they offer are getting more and more outrageous." Sen had a bad feeling, and he thought of a possibility. Then, what then? Julie patted her son and said, "Same old. Congratulations, Liu." Sen took 2 steps back, shocked and bewildered, and said, "No way. If you can't buy it in Diagon Alley, you can buy it in Hogsmeade." Bell spread his hands and smiled. "It's not that Diagon Alley is unaffordable, but Hogsmeade is more cost effective. You see, this place is guarding Hogwarts, which is very helpful for product promotion. And it's close to you." Sen sighed, feeling both happy and worried. It was as if he had finally gotten into college and thought he could just enjoy his time as it pleased without anyone caring about him, but ended up having his parents come over to accompany him. Sen, with his mouth twitching, tried hard to calm himself down, and told himself that Hogwarts was a boarding school anyway, so what was there to be afraid of? Okay, well, that's good. Where is the location? Sen asked with a forced smile. Julie thought for a moment and said, "Next to the Shrieking Shack, next to Honeydukes, not far from the quill shop, near the train station at the entrance to the village, and opposite the Owl Post Office." Sen was a little confused. He asked in confusion, "Don't bully me for not having been to Hogsmeade. The ones you mentioned are not even next to each other. Where did you buy them? Wait, how many did you buy?" Deg. Chapter 46. Mrs. Weasley and Ginny. The Galaxy Group's construction efficiency was amazing, with everything set up a week before the game. The Black Lake has completely changed. The flat ice surface has been reshaped, replaced by a winding and undulating track and dazzling levels. No Muggle rally track can compare to this. Sen's imagination was full, and he told Lupin and others many game scenes he had played in his previous life, and everyone was amazed. But when it came to the actual arrangement, Lupin stopped him outside and told him that if he participated too much in the scene design, he would lose the qualification for the competition. Sen had no choice but to wait patiently and look forward to the start of the competition with his friends during this period of time, whether in the corridor or the common room. The hot topic of discussion among all the young wizards was the sleigh race. For the first time, their enthusiasm was attracted by something other than Quidditch. Almost everyone began to pay attention to the venue on the Black Lake. During breaks, they would run to the corridors or windows, where they could see the Black Lake to discuss the function of the newly built track, and guess what kind of mechanisms would be added. The young wizards who registered for the competition used all their spare time to go to the library to look up information and ask questions to professors. As the saying goes, interest is the best teacher. Magic transformation and enchantment techniques, which almost no one paid attention to before, have now become hot topics. Ravenclaw, which is full of top students, is now the most popular among the 4 houses. Each of them can come up with several ideas for sled modification or related magic. Many young wizards who were eager for the competition but did not know how to transform began to compete to make friends with their Ravenclaw classmates and rushed to form a team with them. Headmaster Dumbledore was particularly pleased to see the young wizards from different colleges making friends with each other, abandoning their college factions, and enthusiastically discussing magic and exchanging techniques. He even smiled to the point where wrinkles appeared on his face. The Weirlight Winds were very confident in their transformation skills, but in order to compete for the championship, they still contacted Mr. Weasley using the communicator and asked him for some experience in transforming items. Mr. Weasley is a master of transformation. As we all know, his car can fly and become invisible. He also contributed to the transformation of Sally Company's modern sewing machines. From their mysterious actions and the confident smiles on their faces, it is not difficult to see that Mr. Weasley must have taught them a lot of good things. When signing up, the Weasley twins formed a group of 2, building and driving their own sled. Harry, Ron, and Hermione formed a group of 3, with Hermione responsible for building the sled and Harry driving. Cedric led a group of several Hufflepuff classmates. LIUSEN brought Neville to form a group. In the end, the number of teams that signed up reached 150. The young wizards actually understood that participation is important. You have to know that there are only a little over 1,000 students in the entire Hogwarts. However, LIUSEN thinks that the preliminaries may screen out most of the teams. Many young wizards signed up just for the souvenirs, and even fewer can actually build a competition sled. When Hermione first learned about the number of participants, she was a little worried that so many teams would cause waste of resources and environmental pollution. But after consulting Professor McGonagall, I learned that there is no environmentalism in the wizarding world, and there is no need to worry about wood waste. If necessary, wizards can turn the plains into lush forests overnight. Miss Know-It-All, having put her concerns aside, agreed to join Harry and Ron's team. On the day of the competition, all major newspapers sent reporters to cover the event, and the counter-tune even included a live broadcast function for the first time. The latest issue of the Quibbler magazine has a blank column page. After the competition begins, the on-site situation will be released in real time, and readers can click on the interactive options next to the column to like, vote and selectively comment on the content. The so-called selective barrage means that readers can choose a few given words to send, such as wonderful, great, cheers, average, long live, come on and other positive words, and the barrage will be signed with the approximate location point before the magic message server was built. Such limited interactions and active messages were easier to manage and implement. In order to increase the speed and stability of information transmission, LIUSEN proposed to interconnect each copy of the Quibbler so that the magic signal would not be attenuated due to crossing too long a distance. Facts have proven that this type of interconnection has significantly increased the transmission distance. In actual testing, most wizarding gathering places in the UK can successfully receive updated information. The Galaxy construction team built many tall stands with ice and snow around the Black Lake, which have excellent views like the Quidditch stands. However, the stairs of the Quidditch stands were too backward, tiring and unsafe. At LIUSEN's suggestion, Lupin built magic trampolines under each stand. The audience only needed to line up and jump on the trampoline, and they would be gently and accurately launched to the high stands. When coming down, you slide directly down a slide made of ice. The slide looks very steep, almost vertical, but it is cast with a magic similar to a levitation spell. The falling process is slow and peaceful, safe and fun. There are many advertisements on the competition field, mainly Galaxy Group's own, and all businesses have ample space for display and promotion. The rest is rented out to others, which is part of the income of this event. Another source of income is tickets for this competition, which are completely free for young wizards and school and their families, while other wizards have to pay a certain amount of money. However, if you spend a certain amount of money in shops in Hogsmeade or at the competition site, you can enter for free. There is also the merchandise display area at the entrance to the competition venue. Exhibition areas such as Galaxy Communications, Stanley Clothing, Galaxy Construction, and Magic Potion Trade have received many orders. All the extra stalls were loaned out free of charge to merchants in Hogsmeade Village, with only one small request. All packaging bags for the day were to be provided by the Galactic Group. It is printed with the emblems of the Galaxy Group and Hogwarts, as well as the theme of this event. The first Galaxy Cup Hogwarts Magic Sleigh Race. On the way to the stadium, someone who surprised LIUSEN called him in the shop display area, to be exact, the Stanley Clothing display area. LIUSEN? Oh dear, it's really you. This is the first time we meet. Ron always mentions you in his letters. Remus always praises you. Mrs. Weasley gave LIUSEN a warm hug and said, thanks to you, I have such a decent job now. Otherwise, I would still be an ordinary housewife now. That person, of course, was Mrs. Weasley. LIUSEN politely replied, don't say that. Stanley Clothing Company has developed so well thanks to you. and the newly launched down jackets. I think there is no one else in the magic world who can do better than you. At this time, the Weasleys who were going to the Black Lake Stadium came forward to greet their mother. After chatting for a few words, Mrs. Weasley suddenly remembered something and turned around and shouted, "Oh, right. Ginny. Come here, dear. Look who's here." Liu Sen looked behind Mrs. Weasley and saw a pretty little girl poking her head out of the house. She had bright brown eyes, beautiful and smart. She was wearing the latest model of white casual down jacket, and her long red hair was softly draped over the snow white clothes, forming a strong contrast point. When she met Liu Sen's gaze, her cheeks turned red instantly, and she retracted her little head behind the door like a frightened firefox. Ever since Mrs. Weasley joined the galactic group, her family has lived a much more affluent life than in the original plot. The most direct manifestation of this is that all the children no longer need to wear second-hand clothes. To be exact, Mrs. Weasley was not a good housekeeper. Her family had previously relied on the meager income that Mr. Weasley brought home from his job at the Ministry of Magic in the original novel. Mrs. Weasley went to Gringotts to withdraw money, but there was not a single gold galleon in the vault except for change. In the end, she took out the silver sickles and copper nuts in the corner and took them away. It shows how short of money her family was, but this family was so short of money that they spent all their money every month and their coffers were completely empty. When they got lucky and won the jackpot, they didn't save the money or buy new clothes for their children or new textbooks. Instead, they took all the money to travel to Egypt. They were just free and easy when they had money, and they tightened their belts when they didn't have money. However, Mrs. Weasley was still a competent mother. Although her family was not rich, every child was well fed and clothed, and was taught with love. The family was harmonious and happy. Later, every child was very successful. Now with Liu Sen's intervention, Mrs. Weasley is no longer idle at home, but started her own business in middle age, and earned a generous income. So whether it was Ron, the twin brothers or Percy, they all had more pocket money and endless new clothes to wear. Ginny, the only girl in the family, was originally dirty all day long, wearing old clothes, and holding second-hand books in her hands. Like Cinderella. Now, Ginny follows her mother to Stanley Company and Galaxy Group every day. She wears the latest clothes, eats nutritionally balanced work meals, and meets high-ranking officials, wealthy businessmen and outstanding company members. As a result, her whole person underwent a transformation, vaguely showing the temperament that a little princess from a pure-blood family should have. Mrs. Weasley waved her hand with a smile on her face, and Liu Sen, who was distracted, finally withdrew his gaze. He suddenly felt his face flushed, and he was actually staring at the girl in a daze. But he couldn't explain it. Liu Sen could only cough awkwardly. At this moment, he wanted to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. There were Weasleys all around him. Chapter 47. Galaxy Cup Hogwarts Wizarding Sleigh Race. After the brief incident in front of the Stanley clothing exhibition area, the group came to the competition registration office. The friends returned to their respective teams, registered their names, and drew team numbers. There are not many people who work in groups of 3 or 2, and most young wizards will choose to form a team of 5. This way, they can better complement each other's strengths and weaknesses, and each person will be responsible for a part of the work, which will give them an advantage in both making sleds and competing in competitions. The first item of the competition is of course to build a sled. More than 10 teams are divided into an area. Every teams are surrounded by a circle, with basic materials such as wood, ropes, and iron bars placed in the middle. The commentator is still the eloquent and articulate Lee Jordan. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first Galaxy Cup Hogwarts Magic Sleigh Race. There are 158 teams and 489 students registered for this competition. It's so shocking. Almost half of the students at Hogwarts have participated. Today, let us witness this unprecedented competition together. The audience burst into applause at once, and the atmosphere group below also ignited the magic cannon at the appropriate time. Suddenly, clusters of colorful smoke formed, flowers and beautiful shapes bloomed in the sky, and the smoke also formed eye-catching emblems of the Galaxy Group and Hogwarts. This competition is exclusively sponsored by the Galaxy Group. Thank you very much. When Lee Jordan said this, He subconsciously glanced at Professor McGonagall. Seeing that the other party was not angry with him, he remembered that this was not an advertisement. The sponsor was indeed the Galaxy Group. Reassured, Lee Jordan began explaining, "The competition has officially begun. Now we will proceed to the first item. Sled making. The participating teams will use the materials provided by the venue to build their own sleds. This level not only tests the wizard's design ability, it is also a competition of magic skills." As Lee Jordan gave his commentary, telescopes were immediately set up on the stands and the teams were busy with their competition. Liusen took Neville and began to operate slowly. He did not use a wand, but drew talismans on his palm and selected several thick tree trunks from the pile of materials with his fingers. "I'm going to start Navi." Following Liusen's reminder, the little fat man hurriedly retreated, and after hiding to a sufficient distance, he gave Liusen a thumbs up, indicating that he had reached a safe place. Liusen stretched his neck, arms, and legs, and took out 2 homemade magic wands from his pocket, one in each hand, dual-wielding magic wands. "Are you afraid?" Liusen was seen using a levitation spell with one hand and a cutting spell with the other. With a few strokes, he chopped the wood into several sections and placed them on the ground one by one. Then he stepped forward and switched both wands to the lighting spell, lightsaber mode, without the bonus of the thunder wand. The lightsaber at this moment is just bright white in color. Neither its power nor its temperature can be compared with the genuine one, but it is more than enough for cutting wood. Liusen attacked from both sides, but he had a clear mind and was not panicking. In a short while, a pile of scraps had accumulated under his feet, and the remaining parts had turned into steaming parts with sharp edges. Having seen Liusen practice several times, Neville knew that the dangerous part was over. So he approached with confidence. No matter how many times he has seen it, such smooth cutting and powerful magic are always amazing. Neville is full of admiration for Liusen. The main parts have been made, and Neville is now in charge of assembly. Liusen takes the iron bars and iron plates to process the last few parts. 2 wide wooden boards with curved front sections are the foundation of the sled and serve as tires. Placed at the bottom. Several beams were cut with mortise and tenon grooves, and Neville used a levitation spell to control the assembly. On top are wooden chairs, steering wheels and other accessories. The wooden sled is made entirely of mortise and tenon structures, which are sturdy and easy to assemble. The little fat boy completed the construction by himself. At this time, Liusen had already used his lightsaber, which could cut through iron like mud, to cut the rough shape of the metal parts, and then used a transformation spell to reshape the parts after the sled is complete. The more important step comes: enchantment. After a few bonding spells came the reinforcement spell, then the weight reducing spell, the waterproof spell, the windproof spell, the wear resistant spell, the wind rune, the cushioning rune. There are more than 20 kinds of magic and ancient magic words involved. Finally, Liusen also put a few Chinese specific golden armor charms, light body charms, divine movement charms, and rebound charms on the sled. Wiping the sweat from his forehead, Liusen gave Neville an OK gesture. Mark 3 is done. Neville quickly raised his wand and fired a firework into the sky, which meant that their sled was completed. Lee Jordan's commentary sounded in the air. "Look. Team 37 has completed the construction of the sled. It took 25 minutes. Ranked 7th. Please ask the inspection team to go and check it out." Liusen looked at Neville in astonishment. He had been concentrating on the explanation and didn't pay attention to it. "We are the 7th to finish? How is that possible?" Neville counted on his fingers and recalled. "The first 3 are from the Ravenclaw team, the 4th is the Weasley twins, the 5th is the senior Slytherin, but they have Ravenclaw to help them, and the 6th is, who was it? I remember. It's Cedric's team." Liusen was a little sad that he was surpassed by so many people. At this time, Professor Sprout came with 2 senior girls for inspection. The professors acted as inspectors in this part. After all, some senior students couldn't fully tell what magic the contestants used. Even though Professor Sprout spends all day in the greenhouse growing herbs, her magic level is very good. When Neville saw that it was Professor Sprout who came, he immediately smiled. He loved her biology class the most. The test results were synchronized to the commentator through a small information board, so Professor Sprout wrote here, and Lee Jordan spoke on it. The sled of LIUSEN and Neville's team uses a double slide design. The entire sled is made up of multiple pieces of wood and uses a traditional oriental mortise and tenon structure. This means that even without the bonding spell, this structure is very stable and strong. Wow. This is amazing. After 2 rounds of applause for encouragement, he continued, they were also excellent in spells. They use levitation spells, waterproof spells, windproof spells, wear-resistant spells, and Chinese magic on top of that. However, it's not against the rules. Congratulations to the team for qualifying. The 2 returned to the rest area and waited for all the teams to finish the construction. After a while, Harry's team of 3 also finished the construction point. Lee Jordan explained. Team 65 has completed the manufacturing. Their members are Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger. Their sled uses a 3-slide design, 2 in front and 1 in the back, which helps to improve the flexibility of turning. The entire tree trunk was hollowed out and then enlarged using the magnification charm. Very good design. Similar to the designs of the top 3 Hufflepuff teams, the parts of Team 65 are more cleverly connected, using a combination of transfiguration charm and adhesion charm. Congratulations to Team 65 for qualifying. The sled making competition went smoothly, and Lee Jordan never stopped talking. However, by the end of the 2-hour time limit, more than 50 teams still failed to qualify for the competition points. Some people don't know how to enchant, and the sleds they made can't move at all. They are just wooden frames that need horses or sled dogs to pull them in the Muggle world. Point. Although some teams built a magic sleigh, they secretly stuffed a magic carpet or a broomstick into it. After being discovered, they were disqualified from the competition. There were also some young wizards who signed up on a whim, but when they arrived at the venue and saw the logs, they were dumbfounded. They had no idea how to cut or combine them, let alone enchant them, so more than 50 teams were eliminated in the first round. Excluding the ones that violated the rules, the remaining 20-odd teams didn't even cut a single piece of wood, but still received a small souvenir from the Galaxy group. Each person had an exquisite magic pen engraved with the words, "Commemoration of the 1991 First Galaxy Cup Hogwarts Magical Sleigh Race." Next up is the official competition. Chapter 48 Speed and Ice. The official competition began after a short break. More than 90 qualified teams lined up on the track according to the order in which they completed the sled production. Team LIUSEN was ranked 7th and ranked near the front. He and Neville's sled were alongside Harry and Ron. In front of them was the sled of Cedric, the Weasley twins, and others. LIUSEN found that his sled might be the most complicated and sophisticated one on the field. The sleds of the first 3 Ravenclaw teams were very simple and rough. The first place sled had a base made of 3 bark-covered logs glued side by side, with a log placed horizontally on top as a seat, and 2 arm-thick sticks inserted vertically in front of the seat as handles. That was it. There wasn't even a curve at the front. The second place sled was even more bizarre. It was a wooden stake with leather on it that was enlarged to more than 1 meter thick using a magnifying spell, and then 2 holes were dug out inside for people to sit on. It didn't even have a base. LIUSEN was very curious about how they would keep their balance. The third one is a little bit stronger, but only to a limited extent. The sled has 2 skateboards, but those skateboards are too small, just the size of 2 feet. It looks like an enhanced version of the second one, but with 2 extra legs on both sides of the trunk to keep balance. It's like a bicycle with training wheels. Big trunk, small legs. LIUSEN was worried about them, wondering if the legs would break when turning. LIUSEN shook his head. He looked back and saw more bizarre and imaginative designs. The competition required the user to use the materials on site to make a 2-seat sled that could move forward on its own. As long as it didn't fly, it could move forward in any way. Are the young wizards understanding things too broadly? What kind of weird things are these? But we have to admit that these weird things are also in line with the rules. It is said that wizards lack logical thinking, and it seems to be true. For a civilization that relies too much on magic, does it still need to consider so much? What about industrial design? A magic trick allows you to realize various functions. What about material mechanics? There are several reinforcement spells to help you solve it. What about tolerance matching? The enlargement and reduction spells can do whatever you want. Liusen looked around and whispered, Neville, isn't our design a little too conservative? Look around you, Neville. Also noticed the young wizard's imaginative designs. Even though he was born in a wizard family, his worldview was refreshed. But he was still confident in Liusen and said, don't worry, Liusen. Our sled is the best, Ron. On the side excitedly interrupted, ours is the best. We'll know after a comparison. Haha, after. Waiting for a while, Liu began the countdown. With the last sound, a dazzling red firework exploded in the sky point. In an instant all the contestants began to rush forward. The initial section of the track is a separate straight ice track, leaving enough space for the athletes to create distance between themselves. Only after the straight section is over will you enter the official track through a turn. The sled designed by Liusen is operated by a steering wheel, which allows for more precise control and is more in line with his usage habits. The pedals under your feet are connected to the switches of the levitation spell and the wind talisman, just like driving a car. What surprised Liusen was that many of the contestants had faster acceleration than his sled. As soon as he stepped on the accelerator, several sleds rushed out with a whoosh. However, the sleds that accelerated too quickly obviously lacked stamina, and after more than 10 seconds, Liusen overtook them one by one. Neville looked sideways as he passed the slowing sleds. Most of them use the fierce fire-breathing magic of blazing flame as a propulsion force. But it was obvious that the makers of these sleds did not consider the heat resistance of wood, nor did they add enough fireproof function. The tails of several sleds were on fire, and the magic runes on them were destroyed by the flames themselves. The sleds were left with only inertia and plunged into the snow piles on both sides of the track. Immediately, more than a dozen Galaxy Group staff members appeared in mid-air. They rode on their flying brooms and calmly waved their wands, quickly putting out the flames. After confirming that the participating wizards were not injured, they immediately took off again to provide support to other sleds that were in trouble. Liusen nimbly dodged the faulty sled and accelerated on the straight track point not far ahead. The twin brothers were sprinting while shouting loudly. Their sled also had a flamethrower, but it was much more advanced than the previous ones. At the tail of their sled was a fire dragon transformed by magic. The dragon was only the size of a puppy, but the flames it spewed were very fierce. The propulsion provided by the little dragon put their sled in the leading position. Following closely behind the twins was Cedric's sled. There was a thin film on his head, probably formed by the bubblehead charm, which acted as goggles. This could isolate him from the strong airflow and allow him to see the road ahead clearly at all times. The acceleration effect of his sled is also very good. A group of ancient magic runes are neatly engraved on the flat tail of the sled. It uses the storm magic runes as the driving force. At the same time, bubbles are constantly generated. Under the action of the storm, the bubbles are rapidly ejected backwards, as if it is a flame composed of colorful bubbles. The Ravenclaws, who ranked in the top 3 of the manufacturing list, made Liusen amazed by the way they advanced. The sled was made of a wooden stake. Liusen was curious about how they could keep balance. The amazing thing was that they didn't even consider balance. The two drivers were one on the front and one on the back, one on top, one on the bottom. The wooden stakes on the track spin forward like cannonballs. The driver who turns to the top controls the direction. When turning to the bottom, the head retracts, and the special helmet on the head fits perfectly with the hole in the cockpit. At this time, the other driver exposes his head to drive. Liusen gave a thumbs up sincerely and praised in his heart, "You are really a talented person." At this time, the straight track was nearing its end, and more than 30 sleds with substandard quality and design defects were eliminated. There is a sharp turn at the end of the straight track, but in order to prevent the contestants from crashing off the track, a huge curved ice wall was built on the curved part. Even if the sled rushes up without slowing down, it can still turn on the arc-shaped wall. This ingenious design has been widely used in subsequent tracks. It not only increases safety, but also makes the competition fun and exciting. Liusen drove the sled on the curved wall and inertia turned and entered the official track in a flash. A 6-lane track was built on the Black Lake with different arrangements on each lane. Traps or awards require players to adapt to the situation. At this time, Lee Kyadaden's commentary voice sounded again. Welcome to the official track. Congratulations. The challenge officially begins. As he finished speaking, Washpa's incised translucent gold coins lit up on the track. Each coin had a circle of the Galaxy Group logo, with different scores such as 1, 5, and 10 marked in the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, dear contestants, do you see the gold coins on the field? Please drive your beloved sled to collect them. Feel free to crash into them. As long as you smash the gold coins, you will get points. The first sled to complete 5 laps will get 3000 points. The second place will get 2800 points. And so on. But don't underestimate the gold coins on the track. A little bit adds up to a lot. In the end, the ranking will be determined by points. Please keep your eyes open. If you encounter red coins, don't hit them. Red means points will be deducted. At the same time, there are exciting mechanisms waiting for everyone on the field. So, go for it. I wish you all good luck. Everyone has seen the rules of the game before the race, but only when you are on the track will you truly understand their meaning. Magic gold coins are refreshed at any time. After you get on a sled to collect the coins, they will be refreshed on the spot soon, but you don't know whether it will add points or subtract points. Ding 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 ding. A series of gold coins collided, and Liusen was in a good mood. It felt great to harvest gold coins. Liusen sincerely admired Lupin at this moment. He just described the scene in the racing game he had played, and the other party understood it and did it. Moreover, both the visual and sound effects are impeccable. Liusen experienced the reality and excitement that VR racing can't achieve in this magical world. At this time, the log block who was chasing the weird light winds in front of them was the first to have problems. Their sense of direction became worse and worse. The disadvantages of the two people's alternating control became apparent. If it was a straight track, it wouldn't be a big problem for the two to take turns, but it was much more difficult on the complex and ever-changing official track. They couldn't react to the bonus and deduction coins in front of them. Moreover, circling in circles for a long time also made the two drivers start to feel dizzy. Finally, when it was flying over a small slope, the log block instantly lost its direction and spun outside the track. Liusen's sled happened to be behind him, and this sudden big guy blocked his way. Amid Neville's screams, Liusen pulled the brake to activate the reverse wind rune. Under the sled, he narrowly avoided the rolling wooden stake. By the time Liusen started again and got back on the track, a large number of sleds had already passed him. Liusen comforted the sad-looking Neville and said, "It's okay. It's just the first round. We still have a chance." As he spoke, Liusen made a hand gesture and activated a magical talisman. The sled suddenly accelerated, and as it passed one sled after another, it actually gave Liusen and the other man a strong feeling of being pushed on their backs. However, the magic talisman was originally intended for humans, so it was not very effective when used on a large sled. It only accelerated for a few seconds before its power was exhausted. The sled started to speed again, but Liusen was already in the middle of the team, and the track seemed a little crowded. Looking around, Liusen discovered another magical design. The one on the left can no longer be described by the word sled. It is a large centipede. It's obviously a weird shape created by transfiguration, but it's incredibly stable, allowing several pieces of wood connected together to run smoothly and quickly on the ice. All terrain. Multiple legs for shock absorption. Awesome. The one on the right is also outrageous. Their sled is a very traditional design, light and small, the kind that even a dog can pull, but the key is that what he transformed out of the wood was not a dog. Instead, it was a giant python snake pulling a sled. It's outrageous. But the key is that this snake looks like a 5-cent special effect. Not to mention the sections. The wood grain on it is clearly visible. The snake's head didn't change successfully, so I took a pen and drew a pair of cute eyes on it. It looks pretty good, but what the hell? Main point, one is really daring to build, the other two are really daring to drive. Liu Sen smiled knowingly. These seniors' imaginations were no worse than his own. Not bad, not bad. I'm not alone in this. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49 Golden Passion. The slightly congested middle position was not easy to maneuver. Liu Sen tried to move left and right, but he failed to shake off several opponents, and he didn't get any gold coins. Soon the 2 laps were over, and Liu Sen became a little anxious at this time. The centipede brother next to him started to use crutches, and ran more and more awkwardly. Liu Sen saw that the situation was not good, and began to slow down and keep his distance. It turned out that the centipede's transformation skill was not perfect, and the transformation time was too short. The long legs that appeared on the wooden stake began to shrink one by one, until they disappeared. The legless centipede lost its power and slid for a short time before it lay across the middle of the track. Although Liu Sen had pulled away, the time left for him to react was still very short. At this time, Liu Sen noticed that there was a small ridge in front of the centipede's lead. This ridge was meant to increase the difficulty and fun, but at this time it became Liu Sen's life-saving straw. Liu Sen turned the steering wheel and pressed down on the small pond at the critical moment. The front of the sled was not raised high, but it barely pressed down on the sled, blocking the road. Bang! Bang! After the bumps, Liu Sen's sled safely crushed the centipede sled and flew over. This sudden situation not only affected Liu Sen, but also scared the snake sled. Although the snake sled was on another track, it also needed to dodge urgently. But the poor big snake did not react in time and hit the contestant next to it. The snake was also a product of the transfiguration curse. Although its transformation level was slightly stronger than that of the centipede, it was just about the same. Facing the sudden situation, the snake sled was also half a beat slower in its reaction. The big snake was unable to dodge and staggered off the main road, crashing into an unlucky sled next to it with a clang. Small accidents happened frequently during the competition, but they were all minor collisions. In the wizarding world, as long as they were not magical injuries, broken bones and tendons were all minor injuries that could be healed in minutes. What's more, the Galaxy group has equipped each little wizard with a simplified version of the Quidditch emergency airbag suit. In the event of a major collision, it will automatically protect the little wizard. After the little episode, Liu Sen cast the magic talisman twice more and used flexible movement to complete multiple overtaking, and finally broke through the congested road section. But it was already the 3rd lap. The difficulty of the game suddenly increased. The layout of the arena changed again, and many mechanisms and obstacles slowly rose up. One of the tracks was even erected high and turned into a huge vertical ring, or 360-degree circular acceleration track. The audience in the stands looked over through binoculars and couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Not only was the circular track thrilling, but a large number of high-value gold coins also appeared on it. The several contestants in front of Liu Sen obviously noticed this and moved towards the circular track point as they bumped into each other and fought for the road. Liu Sen seized the opportunity and shouted, "Neville! Speed up, Neville!" Received the signal and pulled the special lever on his side, and suddenly a violent thrust came from the tail of the sled. Storm acceleration. Start. As the magic rune was activated, the sled exploded with terrifying acceleration. Just as it was about to hit the sled in front, Liu Sen completed the seal and slapped it on the steering wheel. Bang! Exclamation mark. A loud explosion came from the lower side of the sled. Several people who were bumping into each other and trying to get through were attracted by the movement behind them, but before they turned around, they found that the sunlight above their heads was blocked. Liu Sen flew over their heads with a whoosh. Bang! Liu Sen, who landed again, had already surpassed several people and adjusted the steering wheel to stabilize the sled again. Foul. He committed a foul. He just flew up. Many participating players and spectators who saw this scene protested against Liu Sen's actions. However, Lee Jordan quickly conveyed the judge's opinion. It was not a foul. The explosion rune just now only made the sled jump briefly, not let it fly, so it was in compliance with the regulations. As long as the sled's forward movement was not floating in the air, it was in compliance with the regulations at this time. Neville in the co-pilot seat asked tremblingly, Liu-Sen, do we really want to take this road? It seems to. Liu-Sen chuckled and said nonchalantly, danger? Don't worry. Fortune and wealth are sought in danger. Let's go. Amid the exclamations of the audience, Liu-Sen drove the sled towards the circular track. As the angle continued to increase, Neville's heart was in his throat. It was too steep, and it was going to be vertical soon. Wouldn't he fall? Liu-Sen also started to get serious. Although the gold coins on the circular road were of huge denominations of 20, 30, or even 50, the road ahead would require some real skills. Neville, you control the direction. After Liu-Sen shouted, his hands actually left the steering wheel and he started drawing talismans quickly. Neville was stunned. You actually let me do it at such a high speed, and at such a critical moment. The uncontrolled sled started to deviate from its direction a second later, and Neville was so scared that he quickly reached out his hand from the side and nervously tried to control the direction. Liu-Sen, are you ready? I can't control myself. The little fat boy's voice was trembling. This was really too stimulating for him. Liu-Sen didn't say anything but quickly threw 3 speed talismans and 2 light body talismans at the sled. Okay. Liu-Sen took over the steering wheel immediately after shouting, but Neville didn't feel relaxed at all, because the speed of the sled increased by another 30%. At this time, the sled has already reached the vertical position of the circular track. The acceleration has been offset by gravity and there is not much left. Neville looked back and saw that there was only one sled left out of the 3 sleds following closely behind him. The other 2 had fallen off at some point due to lack of speed. Liu-Sen tried to activate the storm acceleration rune of the sled again, but unfortunately the cooling time had not yet expired, and he had to wait a while to recharge. But the sled had already reached its highest point, and the 2 of them were now in a completely upside down perspective. When they looked up, they were looking at the ground. If we don't speed up, the sled will fall straight down. Liu-Sen didn't expect that so many ways to accelerate would not be enough. In a hurry, Liu-Sen turned his head and quickly formed seals on his hands. Then he held the steering wheel with one hand and swung his palm backwards with the other. Wild Wind Talisman. A fierce gust of wind immediately blew out of his hands. The strong reverse thrust was transmitted to the sled through Liu-Sen's arms. The sled in crisis finally picked up speed again. Lee Jordan, it's so thrilling. Liu-Sen actually released a wind magic with his hands and made the sled accelerate back onto the track. The whole audience was attracted by this scene and burst into warm cheers. Liu-Sen's sled passed the most dangerous suspended part, but the team following closely behind was not so lucky. When it reached the vertical position, it lost all its means, and the sled lost power and fell in a free fall. However, the protective clothing on the contestants came in handy at this time. After 2 bangs, the airbags wrapped the 2 people into 2 huge balls. Liu-Sen didn't have time to pay attention to these things. He and Nori were rushing towards the bottom of the circular track under the influence of gravity acceleration. The extremely high speed caused the sled to shake violently, and Neville even had the illusion that the sled was about to fall apart. Fortunately, this situation soon stabilized, because their sled finally got off the circular track, and the gold coin points in the last section were surprisingly not low. Ding 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 ding! Exclamation mark. The 2 of them were finally in the mood to appreciate the wonderful sound of gold coins. Neville said in surprise, 50, 50, 100. Oh my god. How many gold coins did we get? There weren't too many surprises in the last lap, but there were more traps and coins that deducted points on the track, so the contestants had to focus more on avoiding them. If you are unlucky enough to step on the deceleration trap, the deceleration magic on it will cause the speed of the sled to drop sharply, but if you are lucky enough to get a speed up bonus, you can get about 10 seconds of speed up. The effect is comparable to the storm rune. However, some players, in order to achieve higher speed and better ranking, ignore the low value deduction coins and deceleration traps, and crashed into the vehicles without thinking. The result is certainly not worth the effort. The deceleration trap will teach you to do slow motion with your left and right hands in every minute. Liu Sen, who had exhausted all his means of acceleration, focused his attention on collecting gold coins and acceleration rewards. There were still many strange little mechanisms and ramps with gold coins that no one had collected. For example, there was a section full of red minus coins, and all the players avoided it, but Liu Sen found that there were a lot of large value bonus coins mixed in. There were also a few speed up rewards. This requires high maneuverability and flexible driving skills to try, but just when he was happily picking up a bargain, he found out that someone else had discovered the secret. "Harry, aren't you in the front? Why are you falling behind?" Liu Sen shouted. It was his good roommate Harry and Ron who also collected large sums of gold coins with flexible driving. Those Slytherin guys were naughty. They knocked us off the track, but they didn't get what they wanted. They hit a trap and were eliminated. Ron replied loudly. At this time, a broken down sled appeared in front of the two teams, and both teams quickly separated to avoid it. However, when they passed by, they were surprised to find that it was the twin sled. Something had gone wrong with their sled, and the two were now scratching their heads in frustration. At this time, we turned another corner and there was only half a lap left on the track. Both Liu Sen and Harry used their flexible positioning to gain a speed up bonus, but neither of them was able to shake off the other. "Harry, hurry, hurry. We're almost at the finish line," Ron shouted excitedly. Liu Sen also quickly said to Noi, "Try to see if you can speed up." Neville immediately turned the accelerator, but there was no response. He said helplessly, "I tried it. The storm rune seems to be broken. Can you use your hands to release the storm again?" "No. My arm is almost broken," Liu Sen replied. Seeing Harry and his companion sled overtaking, Liu Sen hurriedly tried to think of a solution. After one race, his magic power was almost exhausted. It wasn't because his sled was not good enough, but because he had used too many runes and acceleration methods on the circular track. "Neville, you control the direction," Liu Sen said, then took out his spare wand, turned around and performed transfiguration on the tail of the sled. A few seconds later, Liu Sen grabbed the steering wheel again and said to Neville, "Hold on tight. We are going to sprint." Neville held the handle obediently, but after waiting for a few seconds he said, "Why do I smell something burning? What's on fire?" Liu Sen smiled at him, showing his white teeth, and said, "Don't worry, Neville. We are the ones on fire. 3, 2, 1, whoosh bang. Grandma, I want to go home." Just when Harry and Ron were about to cross the finish line, Liu Sen and Neville's sled came from behind and crashed in front of them. Swish. With a sharp friction sound, the half-remaining sled was pushed by the explosion and overtook Harry and the others, and reached the finish line. Liu Sen kicked open the cracked cockpit, turned around and pulled the frightened Neville up from his seat. At this time, Harry and the other two ran over with shocked expressions. "Are you okay? What the hell was that move?" Liu Sen skillfully took out Weasley's magic hairdresser, tidied up his messy hair in an instant, and said calmly, "It's the transfiguration spell. I turned the back half of the sled into a flying monkey." Ahahaha. Harry, Ron, Liu Sen's group finished the race in 12th place, and Harry's group finished in 13th place. However, after the gold coins were calculated, Liu Sen's final ranking was only second to Cedric. He won the runner-up. Liu Sen said regretfully, "If I had known this trick was so fast, I would have turned the sled into a firecracker." Neville. Deg. Ugh. My roommate is so scary. Chapter 50. Are you hiding something from me? It has been half a month since the bobsleigh race ended, but people are still as enthusiastic about this ice sport as ever that day. A photo of Liu Sen's team, Cedric's team, and a company of Slytherin and Ravenclaw holding up medals and flowers together dominated the front page of the newspaper. This new sport has become completely popular. LIUSEN had already made arrangements for the little wizards who were unable to participate, and the teams who were left with regrets. The track on the Black Lake will be kept for a while, so that everyone can continue to play in their spare time after class, but dangerous parts such as the 360-degree vertical track will be removed. This news made the little wizards cheer. They still have many ideas that have not been put into practice, and more sled shapes are waiting to be explored. The community is divided into two camps regarding this event. Some wizards think that this is a game for children, and it is completely different from the ancient Quidditch. The difference is too great, but more wizards showed enthusiasm for this ice sport. Judging from the online voting and feedback of the Quibbler, everyone expressed their approval of the Galaxy Group's layout and the performance of the little wizards. After a period of time, many envious wizards came from far and wide to experience the fun of the magic sled. Lupin, the chief designer of this track, also became a little famous, and Galaxy Group's construction business received another batch of orders. Lupin will be busy in the days ahead. However, just as the Christmas holiday was approaching, the behavior of Harry and his companions began to become abnormal. The three of them were actually secretly reading books in the library. "What are you looking for?" Liusen asked in a low voice. When he met a few people in the library, Ron hurriedly closed a thick book and said, "Nothing. We're just taking a look." Harry nudged the other person with his elbow, because Ron spoke loudly unconsciously, attracting many young wizards who were reading and studying to look over at him. "We're actually accompanying Hermione," Harry said, winking at Ron frantically. The other party understood and continued, "Yes, that's it. Accompany Hermione. She loves reading. You know, Hermione rolled her eyes in the pile of books, lamenting that the acting skills of these two idiots were so poor. Even a dog would not believe such a crude excuse, but Liusen nodded seriously and said, "Yeah, I know. So you two flower protectors will accompany her throughout the whole process, right?" Ron nodded without hesitation. Yes, that's it." Liu-Sen smiled secretly in his heart. Didn't he just want to know who Nicholas Flamel was? But he pretended not to know, shook the book in his hand and said, "I'm here to return the book, so you three can continue reading. Oh, by the way, the book Outstanding Figures in Modern Magic is very boring. I don't think it's as interesting as the Chocolate Frog picture cards. I'm leaving first." When Liusen turned and left, Ron realized that the title of the book he had been hiding was now exposed. Liusen was still a little disappointed. He still considered them his friends, but these three people were so mysterious and kept something from him. If they asked him, he would tell them the answer on the spot. Why bother? "Okay, you guys play by yourselves." Just when he was some distance away from the library, Harry suddenly called him. "Wait for me, Harry. Why aren't you reading? Is there something wrong?" Liusen asked in surprise. "This is the real trouble." He was just muttering to himself. Harry took a few deep breaths and said, "I'm sorry Liusen. I didn't want to hide it from you." It's at this time, another sound of footsteps came from behind Harry, and Hermione's voice came over. "It's me, ha ha." She also took a few deep breaths before continuing. "It was me who asked him to keep it a secret." Liusen rolled his eyes. He looked at the two people who caught up with him and said, "What's going on? Why are you being so mysterious?" At this time, Ron slowly followed with a pile of books in his hands. Seeing that several people stopped in the corridor, he quickly put the books on a long bench beside him and supported his waist. Liusen couldn't help laughing. "PFFD. You three are too weak. You need to exercise more." "Ahem. I was just kidding. Who of you can tell me what you are hiding?" "I didn't let them tell us. We are looking for clues." Hermione looked directly into Liusen's eyes without fear. "There's something wrong with Snape. He was cursing Harry during Quidditch. I've seen the curse process in a book." He looked directly at the opponent and kept chanting the spell. "That's what Snape did. I saw it with my own eyes. If I hadn't interrupted him, Harry would have fallen to death." When Liusen heard this, He couldn't help but ruffle Hermione's hair, even though it was already very messy, under Hermione's fierce and biting gaze. Liu Sen took out a folding comb from his pocket, the new Weasley magic hairdresser, and with 2 strokes he turned the other person's hair into flowing straight hair and wanted to speak up to stop Liu Sen when Hermione's hair became messy. But he stopped talking when he saw Hermione's beautiful hairstyle. Well, it looks good. Seeing that the other person was staring at the top student girl, Liu Sen threw the hairdressing comb over to her. Here you go. Hermione's hairstyle is up to you. And Harry's hair color. You know. Liu Sen said with a wink. Cool. You gave it to me? Fred and the others didn't even give me a discount. I'm their younger brother. Ron happily put it away and complained. Hermione suddenly got angry and she shouted, "Hey, can you guys be serious? I'm talking about business." Liu Sen shook his head and said, "I told you, it was Quirrell who cursed Harry." I interrupted Quirrell. "Why don't you believe it? Snape was reciting the spell to remove the curse. If he wanted to harm Harry, why did he catch Harry in the end?" "Right, Harry nodded. "Yeah, I think so too. Snape is a very nice person. He takes good care of me." Hermione put her hands on Harry's shoulders, looked at him closely and said, "But Harry, don't forget that Snape's leg was injured that night with the troll. You were the one who discovered it. He must have taken advantage of the chaos to go to the 3-headed dog's room and try to take the things underneath. And then he was just being nice to you to distract his vision. He wanted to get rid of you. Only by being nice to you can you avoid arousing other people's suspicion." Harry was stared at face to face, and his heart was in turmoil. At the same time, he felt that what Hermione said made sense. Snape was so mean to everyone. Why was he so nice to him? Was it really to avoid suspicion? Liu Sen was speechless. The top student thought he had grasped the truth of the matter and started to make wild guesses with just a few clues. "So, if you want to suspect Snape, then suspect him. Why are you investigating something without telling me? Why are you keeping it so secretive?" Liu Sen turned the subject back. He just wanted to hear them say it in person. "We learned this when we were talking to Hagrid." Harry was interrupted by Hermione's cough before he could finish. "It's nothing. Right, Harry, Ron?" Hermione glared at the two of them sternly, with an expression that said, "If you dare to refute me, I'll be in trouble." The two of them quickly lowered their heads and said nothing, but there was a hint of guilt towards Liu Sen in their eyes. Liu Sen was going crazy. Why was this girl so obsessed with this? Suddenly he remembered a classic line, "A woman who messes with my brothers must." "Oh, never mind. She belongs to both of you. Do whatever you want with her." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.